got the YouTube side up and running. Oh, all right. Let's see here. So what was? I suppose I should probably say hello, everybody. I hope things are going well. Yeah, it looks like we're live across the board. That's very good. So I think things have been going well. At least I certainly hope so. Oh, right. I should probably put a category down. How silly of me. Writing and reading. Ugh, I swear sometimes what a maroon I am. But first, of course, as is tradition, we must do our. Actually, you know what? Hold on. Let me move my YouTube chat over here, just in case if the CSS broke. Because if it did, that's gonna be a little awkward. Actually, come to think of it, I could also just see, I could, but man, now that I'm saying it out loud, I kind of don't wanna. Anyway. Actually, no. I should probably, you know what? Actually, hold on, because I've had this idea that's been kicking around in my skull for a minute. I figured I might as well show it off. Okay, so hang on. Let me just open up my Let's go with something new. Let's get paper. Oh, did I not put? Oh no, that's unfortunate. Well, whatever. That's neither here nor there. We'll just shunt that over to the side here. Just drawing. Now is that over reading or is that? Let me just move that. Yeah, okay. So now that's in front. Let me also just move this over here just a little. And of course I should probably add like a new page. You know what? We'll just hold on. You know what? That's fine. Perfect. A little flesh colored, just the way I like it. Let me also just get this back up and rolling. There we go. All right, so here's the idea, right? So in Pathfinder Second Edition, you've got. Oh, that's big. What the hell was I doing that I needed it that side? Hi, can I help you? Don't mind me. We're just doing a little bit of. Okay, so for. Oh, a zero brush. So for Pathfinder, a Second Edition, right? You've got in Howl of the Wild or HOTW, right? You've got the were creatures. Now, of course, the were creatures, they got their usual weaknesses, like, oh no, you got weakness to silver. And depending on your, you also turn into your hybrid shape. Well, rather, for the traditional were creature, you turn, like, on the full moon, where you're like, I'm a monster, because then you have the curse of the were creature. I should probably stop. Hold on, give me just a second. Because let me pull it up as the trait, right? Because there are a lot of were critters. There it is. Hi. Can I help you? What are you doing? Hello. Hi. Yeah, and there she goes. Okay, so basically you get like, oh yeah, you're a were creature, right? Now, traditionally, it says that only humanoids can be afflicted at least by the curse. There are those afflicted with the curse and those that are born with it. You know, it's like, so you could have a were creature and retains the same memories and statistics, blah blah blah. Affected werewolves receive their curse from the bite, which could have been by an afflicted or true were creature. So now what you have is that you've got the were creature archetype, and with the archetype, sorry, I'm also doing this with my come to think of it, hold on, give me just a actually no, my cat has taken up residence over where I usually do my drawing, so I'll just do it by mouse. Okay, so then what you do is you go, you look over here and you say, oh well, let's just take a look at the were creature archetype, because yeah, sure, it's a rare thing. For context, archetypes are like your subclasses, or rather they're just like little extra bits that you can get. So, you know, like, oh, I see, I want to take Scrounger, which will basically make you into literally MacGyver. Or at least basically MacGyver, excuse me, you're not like literally, you know what I mean. You gain all of his power. You can scrounge out, whatever, cobble together, this, that, tit for tat. You need a crowbar? Yeah, I made it out of sand. Don't worry about it, it works. Oh, hello there, Beffy heads. I hope things are going well. We're just doing our pre Don Quixote reading yapathon, because I'm talking about Pathfinder, because I got some ideas kicking around in this old skull. Yeah. We're talking about, because for context, I'm playing an automaton, which is another rare lineage. That one's from Guns and Gears, which came out. Was that 2022? Yeah, I need to double check. But anyway, so but the thing is that the party doesn't actually know that I'm an automaton, because I just look like a regular well, I'm disguised as a regular old kobold, and the benefit is that most of them never questioned it, because I'd never take off my armor. Because the thing about automatons is, since they don't sleep, you never have to take off your armor. Because it's only sleeping in armor that gives you any sort of malice. And that's malice, that's this malice, not the bad malice. Well, I mean, they're both bad, but you know. So anyway, we'll just get that out of the way. Let me see here. So the plan is, now granted, I also talked to my DM about this one, because, you know, that's the thing with the rare archetypes, where it's like, yeah, you should probably ask. Because now the thing about it is that it states, hang on, let me dredge it up real quick, is that you have to be, for the requirements, you have to either have been born into a lineage of true were creatures, or were afflicted with the curse of the were creature, right? Also, that's were creatures and more like werewolf rather than like were creature, because, you know, my captions can't figure that one out. So what you take, hold on, let me find it again. So you take your automaton. Now you might be thinking like, oh, but if it's just a regular old robot, then I mean, how could you possibly have been born into a lineage? Because the thing about automatons is that they don't have the humanoid tag. What they have instead is construct. Now granted, they also don't gain a lot of the construct immunities, like to diseases and being killed and yada yada. But what you do get instead is that people can heal you with spells and other things that heal living creatures. So that's cool. But the other thing is that they're not actually, well, I mean, they are made. Their bodies are manufactured, but they started out as living people, and then they became a robot because the Justikians, I think that's how you pronounce it, they ended up having, they were dealing with an incursion from the I don't really remember hang on, I need to check. Automatons. I'm just getting all this off of the archives of Nethys, it's the open source for Pathfinder Second Edition. You can find actually about everything that you want on here, because that's the nice thing, is that it is all open source. Now, granted, they don't have a lot of the well, I mean, they have a fair bit of the lore, but they don't have like all the pretty pictures. Well, they have a lot of pretty pictures, but not the like ooh. And of course, then you also don't get to have the joy of flicking through the books. But anyway, yeah. So Assyrian. That was the ancient Assyrian was the foes of the Gistkins. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not really sure because it's Jistka, right? But the thing is that they basically take the mind, or at least like the more metaphorical. They don't have like a brain rattling around in there. I don't think. I'm not actually 100% sure on that one. But they take like you got the brain scan and then also the life force and the soul. So technically speaking, before said automatons became an automaton, you could certainly have been born into a lineage of true were creatures, which means that you can get around that. Now, granted, you can't get around that for getting beastkin, because it explicitly states that you have to have the humanoid tag. So basically, well, I'll be honest, the first thing that I asked my DM was like, how do you feel about Transformers Beast Wars? To which he replied, I like it. I think it's neat. Or at least generally, like, the setting is cool because, they've got like at least 3 different iterations out now, because there was the new movie, and then there was the first run, and then there was the second run. So then you take that and you say, well, technically speaking, I actually came from a very long and proud line of were crocodile kobolds, because you've got like 3. How many types do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You've got 9 different flavors of were creature for your were creature dedication. You could be a bat. Hold on, I should give him little arms. It's gonna bug me. Automaton. Also just doing this with my mouse because I can't find my stylus. Person. Because technically speaking, anything could become an automaton. Even a Leshy. I think. Leshies, for context, they're like me. They're little nature spirits that you basically bind into a... they're like a sort of golem, except they run less off of ancient Hebrew magic and are more druid magic. Or rangers, I think. Or maybe some other type of nature cleric. Anyway. But yeah, just think of them more like nature spirits rather than, like mindless constructs made of clay. But I'm going off on another tangent here. So you've got your 9 flavors of were creature. And then you say, okay, now of course you gain the usual weakness to silver. Now that's equal to half your level. For context, is that when you have a weakness blank to something, that means when you take it, you take additional damage equal to your weakness. So for instance, is that at level 6, which is when I will gain another feat, and that will allow me to take the were creature dedication, because we're also playing with the free archetype, because it's a lot more fun, personally, I feel. Though admittedly I was torn between becoming a common rider or a werewolf. Well, not a werewolf, a were creature. Oh my god, I swear, I've seen every different version of a were this entire time. Anyhow. So, you know, of course, but granted, that's like the only like real downside. And on the night of a full moon, you assume your hybrid shape, which is basically your Krynos form, or you're like, you know, you're like, part blank, part crocodile, whatever. And so you're just kind of stuck in that shape. But unlike the regular Curse of the Were creature, you do not enter a berserk state and start just doing whatever it is your normal animal self would be doing. Like for a werebat, you wouldn't be going around eating giant frogs, because you'd still be hang on, let me just double check here. Yeah, because the way that it's reading out is that you retain your usual size when you transform. So, you know, like a medium humanoid still going to be medium, so you're not going to be like a very big bear, unless of course if you go down and you get another feat, and then you say, I know, I want to be a really big bear, and then you spend like 2 actions, and then you get to be a big bear, or a big moose, or a big. Actually, no, you don't get to be a big rat, because they're explicitly stated that your animal shape is small rather than tiny. So you're bigger, you're a lot bigger. You are a rodent of unusual size. So more like a rat the size of a capybara, which is a little scary now that I'm kind of envisioning that one. But anyway. Yeah, you've got your 9 flavors, you know, bat, bear, boar, crocodile, moose, rat, shark, tiger, wolf. But the other nice thing is that you get some free unarmed attacks when you're in your hybrid shape. And also it does say that you benefit from your yeah. So your equipment does transform with you and continues to provide bonuses. So technically speaking, yes, you could be a completely armor-plated crocodile or shark, which is also pretty cool, because I'm also playing an inventor, which basically means that I am a mad scientist. One of my favorite things that I can do is I can heal people with explosions. Don't worry about it. Well, okay, technically speaking, I've actually got a variable core, because that's one of the little free inventor feats that you get. It's like the one that you get at level 1, where you're like, oh well, I mean, pick something out. The other nice thing about the inventor, though, is that they are incredibly modular and can change their feats usually on the fly, taking what is usually like a week or more of downtime and reducing it to a single day, with admittedly a high for your DC check, but that's not that bad. So basically, instead of healing people with explosions, because for me, I took the variable core and I set mine to, I believe it's electricity. I need to double check my my feat list real quick, actually. Yeah. So basically, I heal people with well, electricity, rather than, so it's more like a very low grade electrostimulation therapy, which is different than electroshock, because that one, it's basically like, oh, where you know, compared to the ones where it's like, I've got 2 diodes and I'm gonna put them up to your temples and hopefully we're gonna rewire your brain with all this electricity so that you're not depressed, which apparently ended up, depending on the person, of course, it at least had some marginal rate of success. But I don't really know. I'll be perfectly honest, the field of neuroscience is far and beyond my ken. But anyway, the other nice thing is that you get your innovation. That's the thing, it's your magnum opus. It's what you've been working on really hard in your spare time. And so what you take, at least what I took, is the armor innovation, because you got your 3 flavors. You've got construct, which is basically I guess, Goddard. Yeah, you know, like from Jimmy Neutron, or like just whatever other small or to small to medium to large sized critter or robot companion that people have. I just can't think of any off the top of my head, aside from Goddard and. Hmm. Yeah, I got nothing. But anyway, then you've also got a weapon, which is basically I've got. It's a weapon. It can have almost any amount of traits that I want. I think I need to double check, but it's got incredibly modular. And then mine, the one that I took, is armor because I'm kind of one of our only frontline fighters that's regularly there. Barring, of course, our gunfighter and our swashbuckler. But the swashbuckler gets hit a lot and falls down. And I've got a fat shield that I cower behind a lot because, oh boy, they really want to, what's the word, reduce me to scrap. Granted, we also have a gunfighter and an alchemist, but, you know, they're scattered to the winds. And we also have a fighter, but he doesn't show up all the time, so I took it upon myself to be like, yeah, I'll be your, I say sword and board, but I've actually got a warhammer because I found a relic. Because we're running a, we're running a module. I believe it's, hold on, I think it's Adventures in the Indigo Isles. In the Indigo Isles, or something like that. Jewel of the Indigo Isles, that's what it's called. It's also pretty darn fun. Admittedly, though, it seems more like we're playing. It also comes from the same people that made Battle Zoo, which introduces a pretty cool crafting system, where I grind down monsters for spare parts, and use that for making new stuff. Barring the fact that some of these, because a lot of these came out before the Pathfinder Second Edition rework, which ended up revamping and bringing a lot of some of the older stuff up to par with some of the newer. For instance, like Scrounger, where it used to be like, oh, well, you can only make a temporary item of first level or lower. But now, with the rework, it's anything that's half your level or lower, as long as you've got the formula for it. But you have to get the formula. Which, granted, is easy enough for an inventor, because I can just say, I've now invented this thing. Kind of the other nice thing about the Scrounger is that you can also reverse engineer things rather easily. But that one does take a skill feat, which you don't actually, or rather, you can't use your skill feats for class feats for like the free archetype, so I need to. Hence why my my 4th level free archetype thingamahooza is currently empty, because I don't have the skill feat for it. Because I've already got, I think it's Titan Wrestler, Magical Crafting, and what is the other one? Artisanal crafting. I can't remember the one, but it's basically, it's like, oh, it's a circumstantial like +1 when you're working on certain things. And what a surprise! Jewelry smithing and the like. Yeah, it works great for runes, because it's very fine detail work. Or jewelry making. I'd need to double check here. Hold on. Actually, you know what? I just closed that tab. So let me find my specialty crafting. That's the one. Specialty crafting. That's the one. And then I took artistry. That's my specialty, which is fine art, including jewelry. And surprise, surprise, runes, because they're very, very delicate. You gotta carefully scrape them on there, or you put them under a rune stone, and then you're like, I'm going to use this little bit of magic, and poof, and now this hammer lights on fire. Wowzers! I said wowzers, but sure. Yeah, thanks. Anyway, the other neat thing. Oh man, I am going really down the rabbit hole here. Where was I? Right, inventor. So then now the other nice thing about automatons is that they're also modular. So you can be like, oh, I don't really think I need the arcane eye that gives me the ability to see in perfect darkness, which I'm not going to have, which I'm not going to need because it's 6th level. I'm probably going to take Visual Suite, which will give me low light vision, dark vision, and the ability to see invisible creatures. Now I need to double check and make sure if that one just applies to invisible creatures or if it's to any sort of invisible thing, now that I'm thinking about it, because it's called the Visual Fidelity. Creatures and objects as translucent shapes, though these shapes are indistinct enough to be concealed rather than invisible. Concealed, for context, is basically if you want to try and hit something with it, you have to, you've got a 25% chance to just flat out miss. So that's cool. Now, granted, is that area of effects do not have to make that check because, surprise, surprise, it doesn't matter where you're standing. This fireball hits a 50-foot sphere. So as long as you're somewhere near that sphere, ooh, it's gonna get you. Also, is that if something would like blind you, you can it automatically counteracts any sort of blinding effect because then it's like, yes, my other devices are able to compensate quite well for it. So then I'll take that and then I'll be like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I can take my my automaton racial feats and say, you know what, I don't need the arcane eye anymore. So what I could take instead is like the automaton armament and gain another attack that gives grapple, because grapple. Hi, can I help you? That's another reason why I took Titan Wrestler. Now, granted, because I'm small, I can only grapple up to large creatures successfully. But if we end up reaching level 13, I'll be able to become large forever with the enlarged chassis. Let me just double check here. As the grapple trait. I'll be perfectly honest. One thing that I don't like about the Archive of Nethys is that some of these they end up leading from like rather than putting over, or rather like some keywords just link to the like the action, like the grapple action, rather than the grapple trait, because the grapple trait is what I really want, because it lets you let's see here. Yeah, because some of these have grapple now. Yeah, you could use this weapon to grapple with the athletic skill, even if you don't have a free hand. This uses the weapon's reach if different from your own, and adds the weapon's item bonus to attack rolls as an item bonus to the athletics check. If you critically fail a check to grapple using the weapon, you can drop the weapon to take the effects of a failure instead of a critical failure, which admittedly I don't think I'd want to do, because, you know, it's like, oh, it's kind of a part of me. We're kind of stuck. But the other neat thing, going back over to the were creatures, speaking of grapple, is that there are two critters that for their unarmed attack happen to have, you guessed it, a grapple. The two in question being the, you guessed it, crocodile with their jaws, and the were shark, again, you guessed it, with their jaws. So basically is that you can just imagine like a meter tall, I guess a metal caiman, I suppose, would be closer to than a proper crocodile, at least for now. So basically the plan is you run at them, you run at your foe, right? You've got your shield, you've got your hammer at the ready, and you're like, I've got both of my hands occupied. How am I possibly going to grab him? Or rather, at least that's what the person's thinking. Like, he can't possibly grab me. He's got both of his hands full. And then he just clamps down on your calf and doesn't let go because he's remarkably heavy for his size and also really strong because I've got like a +4 to strength, which is very good. Granted, though, is that an inventor doesn't necessarily need the highest strength because one of their unique mechanics, their devil trigger, I suppose you could say, I guess devil trigger would be the closest I could say, is that you get to add your intelligence modifier as well to damage. Now, granted, of course, is that you only add half of it unless you get a critical overdrive, which you have to get 10 over the DC for it to count as a critical success. Or roll a natural 20, but if you roll a natural 20, then you're probably going to end up getting above 10 anyway. Because, usually, surprise, inventors are very good at crafting checks. Because you literally don't have a choice. You get the skill for free, you get a free skill increase at like 3rd level, you get another free skill increase at 7th level, and then whenever legendary crops up, then you also get that for free. So you're going to be good at crafting whether you like it or not, even if you're stupid. Like, as in, like, you took intelligence as a dump stat. Rather than, anything else. Because you probably don't want to use your important stat as a dump stat. Or rather, like, pick a race that has it as like a flaw. Like Leshies. Yeah, Leshies, because I think they have intelligence as a downgrade. Mostly because, it's like, what, are you expecting to send a bunch of gourds to college? No. That's what I thought. Gourd. Whatever. Oh, right. And another neat thing that you get out of the were creature dedication is you get a free toughness feat, and the toughness feat basically increases your maximum hit points by your level, so that's cool. Now, granted, it's usually a pretty cheap feat, but it's like, hey, that's pretty cool. That's like an extra 9 HP, and that might not sound like a lot, but it basically turns your extra 8 HP a level that you usually get as an inventor, because that's how, at least with 2nd edition, that's how it works, is that you don't roll for your HP, you just get your max for your class, which is a very nice touch, because I'll be perfectly honest, it's kind of a gripe that I have with 5th edition. Or like a lot of the older, like Pathfinder or this, that, or tit for tat. You'd have to roll a hit die. And I'm like, that's cringe. Not very cool. I also need to check and see what a recovery check exactly is. Oh, I see. Yeah, and then you get to, and then because it also reduces the DC of recovery checks, because you're like, yeah, of course. A were critter is naturally very hard to put down, because they're big and strong. But yeah, and then you can turn into like, a crocodile, and they've got like a 25-foot regular like land speed and a 15-foot swim speed, which I find to be better than the were shark, because the other neat thing that I've got is that as an inventor you can just get things, like a lot of fun things. Like, for instance, I've got a set of diving armor, which allows me to breathe underwater. And I also gain a swim speed equal to my land speed. So basically that ends up being, now I've got a 25-foot land speed and a 25-foot swim speed. And I get to be a crocodile, which is pretty darn cool. And then you've got things down here like, let me see here. Yeah, you get, like, if you're a were crocodile, you get a death roll, which is basically you clamp down and attempt a jaw strike against a grabbed creature. or rather against the grabbed creature, the creature that you have grabbed in your mouth. Actually, though, it doesn't actually say that they have to be. Doesn't say that they have to be grabbed in your mouth. You just have to have grabbed them. So, for instance, is that I think the maximum amount that you could technically grab at once, like raw, and that's, bear in mind, this is also with, of course, having a dedication or two, like for an automaton, and then having this dedication, you can take pincers and be like, ah, yes, I've got a little grabby pincer thing somewhere that I can use to also grab people. Now, usually it's like, oh, like it's a mouth thing, or it's on your hand or your tail, or technically you could be on like your knee or your foot. Huh. Interesting. Actually, that's a good idea. Ooh, that's a very good idea. Now, the other thing, though, is that I'm not also sure if you end up having the rest of your... gain a movement speed, unarmed attacks, and potentially other abilities based on your rare creature type. Huh. Potentially unarmed ability. Now, it doesn't say that I would lose the rest of those because you're... It's a good question. That would be a question for my DM now that I'm thinking about it. But yeah, you get like all these kinds of like fun abilities depending on what where critter you are. Like, and then of course like down in, oh yeah, it's like an 8th level feat. You get the ability to just patch yourself up like really quick. So at start it's like 4d6, or at least when you first get it, because you regain a d6 worth of hit points for every 2 levels you have. Now, bear in mind is that at like level 8, that would be. Hold on, let me grab my calculator, because the other neat thing about being an automaton is that they're pretty darn tough. They start out with like at least 8 hit points, which granted isn't as much as a dwarf, which I find a little silly because, you know, it's like, I'm made of metal and rocks, and that is a short guy. And you mean to tell me that he's more physically durable than me? But of course, you know, that's kind of the trope where it's like, yeah, dwarves are tough, mostly because they have incredibly thick skulls and are basically made of rocks and metal. So basically is that, you know, you take like your +8, and then inventors, you got like the 8 plus like 64. So yeah, that's already 72. That's right off the rip. That's before counting in constitution modifiers. Now, for instance, for me, and I don't know what that number is. Let me see here. I think mine right now is at like a +3, I want to say. So then I would take like 3. So I would take like, okay, so that's like 8 plus 64 equals 72. And then you add that to like, you know, let's be generous and say that I've got a +3 to my con mod. So then that one's going to be like a total of 96. Sorry, equals 96. And then you get like a +8 because you already have the toughness, so you get an additional +8. That already brings you up to like 104, which is a lot for an inventor, because usually you're not exactly that tough. Now, granted is that, you know, that's like 46, so that would be like about 25% of your health on like a max roll. Which, granted, I'm pretty sure there are some ways that you can swing that so that you get even more. Now, granted, the other neat thing about the inventor is that, like I said earlier, with the healing explosions, you can take. You know what? Actually, hold on. Let me grab my. My music playlist. Open that bad boy in VLC media player as soon as I get that cracked open. I realized I totally forgot about that, so it's mostly just been me and my dulcet velvety tones, which granted I think they're pretty cool, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Oh, you have got to be joshing me. Hold on, give me just a second. Let me grab all these here. Poached egg. Egg cat. And then I go down here into my downloads, and then I grab. And then I grab. And then I grab this. Is this right? No, I think that's something else. I don't actually know what you are. So let's not use that one. Deep forest. Well, there's that. Thanks. I meant to just kind of click. And just kind of click and drag those, but you know what? That's neither here nor there. Henna walk. That one's a fun one. And then we've got. I think that's gonna be all of the. Actually, hold on. I've got the. Oh wait, no, I need to get these ones. Wait, do I have murmurs in the forest? I don't. I didn't. My bad. Oh, and this one goes in there too. Actually, hold on. Give me just a second. Alright, I think all that's gonna be fine. Let me just I'll just turn that up a little here. So yeah. Let me see here. So we've got all this, we got that. What was I talking about? Right, I was breaking down the math. So you've got like, you know, like yeah, it's about like 25%. So with that one, and then yeah, and then you've got like the 24, or no, not minus, divided by 24. So yeah, that's about like, it's a little over, or rather a little under a third of your health, or a fourth of your health. It's a lot under a third, but you know. But the other neat thing about the inventor is that since I've got that searing restoration, which is only a level 2 feat, so you can take that at second level, like I did, because it's pretty darn good. Let me see here. Yeah, so at like every odd level, the healing increases by another d10. So for instance, at up to let me think here. So 5 it would be 3. So at 7 and up it would be 4 d10s, which is a lot. That's a lot of healing because it's on a stick too. It's only like a single action. Now granted, it does have the unstable trait. So the unstable, it's basically like the inventor's focus points, where you pop it, and then there's the you got to roll your d20. It's a flat check, but if you succeed, you get to use another unstable action. Now, if you critically fail, you explode and end up taking blank damage equal to, like, I think it's your level. I think it's your level. Hold on, I need to double check here. Yeah, it's equal to your level. Now, granted, is that the other nice thing about the armor is that I've got metallic reactants, so I've got resistance to lightning damage equal to 3 plus half of my level. So that will basically mean that I don't take any damage when I explode. Now, granted, is that eventually that will start to outpace my my damage, or rather, the damage that I inflict to myself will be outpaced by my own resistance. But the other neat thing is that while you're in overdrive, which is basically your devil trigger state, you also gain an additional +2 to your resistance. So, you know, then it turns to 5 plus half my level. So I'll be basically fine until like level 10, I want to say. I think. Yeah, and even then I'll be taking like piddly damage, which isn't the worst thing that could happen. So then, yeah. But that's basically the idea, is that, you know, I was thinking Beast Wars, and then we transform into a crocodile. And then we start biting people, and that's at least the goal right now. Granted, though, now we didn't actually get to play Pathfinder last night because our host ended up he had some work to go and deal with, which was very unfortunate, at least for me, because I've been rattling this around in my head for a hot minute, and we are so close. We're so close to level 6, which will allow me to, because the other thing is that when you end up taking a dedication feat, you have to take an additional 2 feats from that before you're allowed to get a different dedication feat. So for Scrounger, I need 2 more Scrounger feats, naturally. Now, granted, Scrounger doesn't actually have a lot of feats. They only have 3, not counting the dedication, of course. If we count the dedication, then they just have 4. But that's still, like piddly compared to, like, let's say, oh, I don't know, the Were Creature, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Now, granted, if we break that down, because some of these are specifically for critters that have like a fly speed, so the only one that's applicable for that is a bat. Or, well, I mean, unless, of course, if you want to homebrew something up, which is perfectly fine. So basically, then you've only got 21 feats, really. You know, because you can only take, you know, like, because a lot of these, like the level 6 feats are all like, oh, this one's for boars, this one's for rats, this one's for wolves, sharks, yada yada. Hold on, let me, give me just a second here. Sorry, I needed a little water. Just a little bit of water. Actually, also let me readjust my. I think it's going to be a very fun time. I just realized that I might have been muted for a hot second, which is very slightly awkward. I was basically talking about how, you know, like the Scroungers only got like 3 feats compared to like the Were Creatures like 21. Or at least 21 applicable feats. They've got 29, but, you know, some of them they don't apply depending on your Were Creature type. Oh, golly. So yeah, and then I think it's going to be a fun time. Now, granted, because I am torn, because I do like Starlit Sentinel, but also, yeah, we haven't played in like 2 weeks. I'll be perfectly honest, it just occurred to me that I might be a little dependent on it, but you know what? Oh, it's just so much fun. I like Pathfinder. I really do. I like it a lot, actually. I think it's always been a fun time. At least 2nd edition, because I've been blown out of the water by it. It's just so clean. It's crisp, it's clean, and it runs so smoothly, I find. Now, granted, of course, sometimes like the downtime where you're like, I'm gonna go and get my craft on, and then you're like, oh, I've only got like, because, you know, it takes like 4 odd days, I want to say, to craft the thingamahoozit. Let me go and check the crafting rules, because I think they've also got the Crafting, craft. Oh. Oh, that is nice. 2 days. 2 days, 2 days, 2 days. Oh, that's nice. Because that is a lot, that's a lot nicer. That's a much more kind, I feel. All over 25. Yeah, because that basically has the downtime, which is really nice. I think that's really, really nice. I might actually have to go talk to him and see if we can use like the new crafting thingamahoozits, because that'll be, because it literally cuts it in half, or a day if you have the items formula. Oh, that is nice. Hold on, let me also double check what the Now this song I like because it reminds me kind of Octopath Traveler, which is another game that I have. I hold it very near to my heart. I find it actually. You know what? Hold on. While I'm here, let me futz with the CSS here. I think I might have driven it down a little too far. Make the top like 80. That's better. We'll see if it ends up driving that back down, but I'll need to check. I also might need to change the color gradient on you guys, just because I don't know if the gray ends up matching. I mean, it looks nice, but that's, you know, wow, what a surprise. Blank thing with back outline, where the black outline looks pretty okay. Oh. Maybe I am just a sucker for piano. I'd like to learn how to play piano. Come to think of it. I mean, heck, I don't really. I mean, I could. I probably should, truth be told. I think I might actually have an old keyboard laying around here. Actually, you know what? Let me go chat with my. Let me go and reach out to my sister, because I think. Give me just a second. Yes. Hey, just out of curiosity, do you know where that old... Suppose I should... You know what, actually, you know what, I wonder if they've maybe got any, see about some local piano lessons. Could be a nice time. But anyway. Yeah, I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be a good time. Like a very good time. I do need to talk to him though about maybe that, because, you know, if you got the formula, it apparently only takes like a day to craft. Let me triple check that, because oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice as rice. Craft as a downtime. After you spend 2 days of work setting up. I'll supply raw materials at least half the price. Usually spend currency, except in the case of rare or precious materials. Yeah. Each additional day spent crafting reduces the materials needed to complete the item by an amount based on your level +1 and your proficiency rank in crafting. So for instance, is that if I... Now that, never mind, that one's just based on my level. So if I were level, let's say, I don't know, 5. Interesting. I do have this set to shuffle, right? Yes, I do. Okay, go. Hmm. Hmm. And granted, the other nice thing about Scrounger is that basically you can also just kind of craft things without having any necessary stuff. Because you could just kind of do it. You can craft items even without appropriate tools or a workshop, and it doesn't say that I have any. Interesting. Interesting indeed. And that was player core 2 source. Yeah, compared to the legacy version. There it is. Yeah, because you used to have... Oh, that's interesting. That's actually a lot stronger. It's actually a lot stronger. That's very nice. That's very nice. Actually, check about the full rules on archetypes nowadays. Yeah, dedication details. Yeah, you gotta take 2 other feats from the current archetype. Yes. Yep. Oh yeah. Also, you don't get to, you know, of course you can't take another multi-class dedication if you're already part of that class. So, you know, no 2 eidolons for you. But yeah, fun stuff. Fun stuff. Are these all from Jinxia? No, it's Fangwire, which is apparently a kobold thing. Anyway, I should probably let me think here. Oh wow, I guess I've already been jibber jabbering for about like an hour. Oops. What was that about Deviant? Hold on, I need to. This is a Deviant feat. Ooh. Deviant ability classification? Huh. Interesting. High speed regeneration. Cool. Cool indeed. Gatewalker's Player Guide. Dark Archive. Fun! Regain hit points equal to double your level. You gain this deviation, the GM secretly selects 1 type of energy damage or precious material. Fun. Fun. I don't know what these awakenings are. Backlash, strained metabolism. Ah, I see. Fun. I don't know what the Dark Archive is. You know what? Let's take a look. I would like to go and take a gander here. The Dark Archive. Fun. Yeah, anyway. Let's not look at the... Actually, I do kind of want to look at more of these deviant feats. I think they're fun. Universal feats. Yeah, you know what? Give me the full rules on deviant feats. Backlash. I see. I see. Whenever you attempt to use a deviation. Huh. Fun. That's actually pretty fun. But anyway, yeah, I suppose we should probably get this show on the road. But yeah, that's basically the long and short of the misadventures of K0B0 dash LD. Yeah, because this is his name. That's his secret code name. Except it's really not. He's just Kobo the Kobold to most people that he knows. But that's a secret. Don't tell anybody that he's a robot. Except I can, because, you know, hey, whatever. It's not like it's not like they watch this stream. And if they do, shh, you know who you are. Anyway, I'm gonna grab more water real quick. Alright. Now we're back to good old Don Quixote. You know, after like an hour. So, Chapter 33, which treats of many and great matters. Supreme was the satisfaction that Sancho felt at seeing himself, as it seemed, an established favorite of the Duchess, for he looked forward to finding in her castle what he had found in Don Diego's house and in Basilio's. He was always fond of good living, and always seized by the forelock any opportunity of feasting himself whenever it presented itself. The history informs us, then, that before they reached the country house or castle, the Duke went on in advance and instructed all his servants how they were to treat Don Quixote, and so the instant he came up to the castle gates with the Duchess, 2 lackeys or equerries, clad in what they call morning gowns of fine crimson satin reaching to their feet, hastened out and catching Don Quixote in their arms before he saw or heard them, and said to him, "Your Highness should go and take my lady, the Duchess, off her horse." Oh, hold on, I should probably actually just save this darn playlist so that I don't have to... Go find this, put this in the music, and then we'll just put this here. Thanks. So hopefully that saves so that I don't have to, you know, remake that time and again. Don't look at more Pathfinder stuff. You know you want to. I know I want to, but I won't. Anyway. Don Quixote obeyed, and the great bandying of compliments followed between the two over the matter, but, in the end, the Duchess's determination carried the day, and she refused to get down or dismount from her palfrey except in the arms of the Duke, saying she did not consider herself worthy to impose so unnecessary a burden on so great a knight. At length the Duke came out to take her down, and as they entered a spacious court, 2 fair damsels came forward and threw over Don Quixote's shoulders a large mantle of the finest scarlet cloth, and at the same instant all the galleries of the court were lined with the manservants and women servants of the household, crying, "Welcome, flower and cream of knight-errantry," while all, or most of them, flung pellets filled with scented water over Don Quixote and the Duke and Duchess, at all which Don Quixote was greatly astonished. And this was the first time that he thoroughly felt and believed himself to be a knight-errant in reality and not merely in fancy, now that he saw himself treated in the same way as he had read of such knights being treated in days of yore. Sancho, deserting Dapple, hung on to the Duchess and entered the castle, but feeling some twinges of conscience at having left the ass alone, he approached a respectable duenna, who had come out with the rest to receive the Duchess, and in a low voice he said to her, "Señor Gonzalez, or however your grace may be called." "I am Dona Rodriguez de Grijalba," replied the duenna. "What is your will, brother?" To which Sancho made answer, "I should be glad if your worship would do me the favor to go out of the castle gate, where you will find a grey ass of mine. Make them, if you please. Put him in the stable, or put him there yourself, for the poor little beast is rather easily frightened, and cannot bear being alone at all." "If the master is as wise as the man," said duenna, "we have got a fine bargain. Be off with you, brother, and bad luck to you and him who brought you here. Go, look after your ass, for we, the duennas of this house, are not used to work of that sort." "Well, then, in troth," returned Sancho, "I have heard my master, who is the very treasure finder of stories, telling the story of Lancelot when he came from Britain, say that ladies waited upon him and duennas upon his hack, and if it comes to my ass, I wouldn't change him for Signor Lancelot's hack." "If you are a jester, brother," said the duenna, "keep your drolleries for some place where they'll pass muster and be paid for you'll get nothing from me but a fig." "At any rate, it will be a very ripe one," said Sancho, "for you won't lose the trick in years by a point too little." "Son of a bitch," said the duenna, all aglow with anger. "Whether I'm old or not, it's with God I have to reckon, not with you, you garlic-stuffed scoundrel." She said it so loud that the Duchess heard it and turned around, and seeing the duenna in such a state of excitement, her eyes flaming so, asked whom she was wrangling with. "Why, with this good fellow here," said the duenna, "who has particularly requested me to go and put an ass of his that is at the castle gate into the stable, holding it up to me as an example that they did the same I don't know where, that some ladies waited on one Lancelot and duennas on his hack, and what is more, to wind up with, he called me old." That, said the Duchess, I should have considered the greatest affront that could be offered me. And addressing Sancho, she said to him, You must know, friend Sancho, that Dona Rodriguez is very youthful, and that she wears that hood more for authority and custom's sake than because of her years. May all the rest of mine be unlucky, said Sancho. If I meant it that way, I only spoke because the affection I have for my ass is so great, and I thought I could not commend him to a more kind-hearted person than Lady Dona Rodriguez. Don Quixote, who was listening, said to him, Is this proper conversation for the place, Sancho? Senor, replied Sancho, everyone must mention what he wants, wherever he may be. I thought of Dapple here, and I spoke of him here, and I had thought of him in the stable, I would have spoken there. On which the Duke observed, Well, Sancho is quite right, and there is no reason at all to find fault with him. Dapple shall be fed to his heart's content, and Sancho may rest easy, for he shall be treated like himself. While this conversation, amusing to all except Don Quixote, was proceeding, they ascended the staircase and ushered Don Quixote into a chamber hung with rich cloth of gold and brocade. 6 damsels relieved him of his armor and waited on him like pages, all of them prepared and instructed by the Duke and Duchess as to what they were to do, and how they were to treat Don Quixote so that he might see and believe they were treating him like a knight-errant. When his armor was removed, there stood Don Quixote in his tight-fitting breeches and chamois double, lean, lanky, and long, with cheeks that seemed to be kissing each other inside, at such a figure that if the damsels waiting on him had not taken care to check their merriment, which was one of the particular directions their master and mistress had given them, they would have burst with laughter. They asked him to let himself be stripped that they might put a shirt on him, but he would not on any account, saying that modesty became knights-errant just as much as valor. However, he said they might give the shirt to Sancho, and shutting himself in with him in a room where there was a sumptuous bed, he undressed and put on the shirt, and then finding himself alone with Sancho, he said to him, Tell me, thou new-fledged buffoon and old booby, dost thou think it right to offend and insult a duenna so deserving of reverence and respect as that one just now? Was that a time to bethink thee of thy Dapple, or are these noble personages likely to let the beasts fare badly when they treat their owners in such elegant style? For God's sake, Sancho, restrain thyself, and don't show the thread so as to let them see what a coarse, boorish texture thou art of. Remember, sinner that thou art, the master is the more esteemed, the more respectable and well-bred his servants are, and that one of the greatest advantages that princes have over other men is that they have servants as good as themselves to wait on them. Dost thou not see, short-sighted being that thou art, and unlucky mortal that I am, that if they perceive thee to be a coarse clown or a dull blockhead, they will suspect me to be some impostor or swindler? Nay, nay, Sancho. Friend, keep clear of these stumbling blocks, for he who falls into the way of being a chatterbox and droll drops into a wretched buffoon the first time he trips. Bridle thy tongue, consider and weigh thy words before they escape thy mouth. And bear in mind, we are now in quarters whence by God's help, and by the strength of my arm, we shall come forth mightily advanced in fame and fortune. Sancho promised him with much earnestness to keep his mouth shut, and to bite off his tongue before he uttered a word that was not altogether to the purpose and well considered, and told him he might make his mind easy on that point, for it should never be discovered through him what they were. Don Quixote dressed himself, put on his baldric with his sword, threw the scarlet mantle over his shoulders, placed on his head a montera of green satin that the damsels had given him, and thus arrayed passed out into the large room, where he found the damsels drawn up in double file, the same number on each side, all with the appliances for washing the hands, which they presented to him with profuse obeisances and ceremonies. Hold on, let me see here. Obeisances and obeisance. The obeisance is deferential respect. I see. Not to be confused with differential respect. Let me also just close my clip studio now that I'm thinking about it. Close this. Thank you. Just got a lot of things that are clogging up my my lower bar. Taskbar, that's the word. Anyway, let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. And a Montera is a hat. Yes. Then came 12 pages, together with the seneschal, to lead him to dinner, as his hosts were already waiting for him. They placed him in the midst of them, and with much pomp and stateliness they conducted him into another room, where there was a sumptuous table laid with but 4 covers. There we go. The Duchess and Duke came out to the door of the room to receive him, and them a grave ecclesiastic. One of those who rule noblemen's houses, one of those who, not being born magnates themselves, never know how to teach those who are how to behave as such. One of those who would have the greatness of great folk measured by their own narrowness of mind, one of those who, when they try to introduce economy into the household they rule, lead it into meanness. One of this sort, I say, must have been the grave churchman who came out with the Duke and Duchess to receive Don Quixote. A vast number of polite speeches were exchanged, and at length, taking Don Quixote between them, they proceeded to sit down to table. The Duke pressed Don Quixote to take the head of the table, and though he refused, the entreaties of the Duke were so urgent that he had to accept it. The ecclesiastic took his seat opposite him, and the Duke and Duchess those at the sides. All this time Sancho stood by, gaping with amazement at the honor he saw shown to his master by these illustrious persons, and observing all the ceremonies pressing that had passed between the Duke and Don Quixote to induce him to take his seat at the head of the table. He said, "If your worship will give me leave, I will tell you a story of what happened in my village about this matter of seats." The moment Sancho said this, Don Quixote trembled, making sure he was about to say something foolish. Sancho glanced at him, and guessing his thoughts, said, "Don't be afraid of my going astray, Signor, or saying anything that won't be pat to the purpose. I haven't forgotten the advice your worship gave me just now about talking much or little, well or ill." "I have no recollection of anything, Sancho," said Don Quixote. "Say what thou wilt, only say it quickly." "Well then," said Sancho, "what I am going to say is so true that my master Don Quixote, who is here present, will keep me from lying." "Lie as much as thou wilt, for all I care, Sancho," said Don Quixote, "for I am not going to stop thee, but consider what thou art going to say." "I have so considered and reconsidered," said Sancho, "that the bell ringer's in a safe berth, as will be seen by what follows." "It would be well," said Don Quixote, "if your highness would order them to turn out this idiot, for he will talk a heap of nonsense." "By the life of the Duke, Sancho shall not be taken away from me for a moment," said the Duchess. "I am very fond of him, for I know he is very discreet." "Discreet be the days of your holiness," said Sancho, "for the good opinion you have of my wit, though there's none in me. But the story I want to tell is this. There was an invitation given by a gentleman of my town, a very rich one, and one of quality, for he was one of the Alamos of Medina del Campo, and married to Dona Mencia de Quinones, the daughter of Don Alonso de Maranon, knight of the Order of Santiago, that was drowned at the Herradura. Him there was that quarrel about years ago in our village that my master Don Quixote was mixed up in. To the best of my belief, the Tomasillo, the scapegrace, the son of Balbastro the smith, was wounded in. Isn't all this true, master mine? As you live, say so, that these gentlefolk may not take me for some lying chatterer." "So far," said the ecclesiastic, "I take you to be more a chatterer than a liar, but I don't know what I shall take you for by and by." Oh, hold on. "Thou citest as many witnesses and proofs, Sancho," said Don Quixote, "that I have no choice but to say thou must be telling the truth. Go on and cut the story short, for thou art taking the way not to make an end for 2 days to come." "Well then, sirs," continued Sancho, "that this same gentleman, whom I know as well as I do my own hands, for it's not a bow shot from my house to his, invited a poor but respectable laborer." "Get on, brother," said the churchman. "At the rate you're going, you will not stop with your story short of the next world." "I stop less than halfway, please God." said Sancho, and so I say this laborer coming to the house of the gentleman I spoke of that invited him, rest his soul, he is now dead. And more by token he died the death of an angel, so they say, for I was not there, for just at that time I had gone to reap at Tembleke. As you live, my son, said the churchman, make haste for Tembleke and finish your story without burying the gentleman unless you want to make more funerals. Well then, so it happened, said Sancho, that as the pair of them were going to sit down to table, I think I can see them now plainer than ever. Great was the enjoyment the Duke and Duchess derived from the irritation the worthy churchman showed at the long-winded, halting way Sancho had of telling his story, while Don Quixote was chafing with rage and vexation. So, as I was saying, continued Sancho, as the pair of them were going to sit down to table, as I said, the laborer insisted upon the gentleman taking the head of the table, and the gentleman insisted upon the laborer's taking of it, as his orders should be obeyed in his house. But the laborer, who plumed himself on his politeness and good breeding, would not, on any account, until the gentleman, out of patience, putting his hands on his shoulders, compelled him by force to sit down, saying, "Sit down, you stupid lout, for wherever I sit will be the head to you, and that's the story. And troth, I think it hasn't been brought in amiss here." Don Quixote turned all colors, which on his sunburnt face mottled until it looked like jasper. The Duke and Duchess suppressed their laughter so as not altogether to mortify Don Quixote, for they saw through Sancho's impertinence, and to change the conversation and keep Sancho from uttering more absurdities, the Duchess asked Don Quixote what news he had of the lady Dulcinea, if he had sent her any presents of giants or miscreants lately, for he could not but have vanquished a good many. To which Don Quixote replied, "Señora, my misfortunes, though they had a beginning, they will never have an end. I have vanquished giants, and I have sent her caitiffs and miscreants, but where are they to find her? She is enchanted and turned into the most ill-favored peasant wench that can be imagined." "I don't know," said Sancho Panza. "To me she seems the fairest creature in the world. At any rate, in nimbleness and jumping, she won't give in to a tumbler. By my faith, Señora Duchess, she leaps from the ground on the back of an ass like a cat." "Have you seen her enchanted, Sancho?" asked the Duke. "Why, seen her?" said Sancho. "Why, who the devil was it but myself that the first thought of the enchantment business? She is as much enchanted as my father." The ecclesiastic, when he heard them talking about giants and caitiffs and enchantments, "Hi, Neon! Glad to see you could drop on by. Yeah, wait. I'll be honest, I may or may not have gotten my yap on for about a good hour beforehand talking about Pathfinder. Long story short, if you're familiar with Transformers Beast Wars, that's my next piece of character development that I'm going for. Because where crocodile automaton. Now bear in mind that's where as in like a werewolf, not like a where's the crocodile. I think it's gonna be a real fun time. But I'll get back to my I'll finish the chapter at least before I jibber jab a little. Let me see here. Began to suspect that this must be Don Quixote of La Mancha, whose story the Duke was always reading, and he had himself often reproved him for it, telling him that it was foolish to read such fooleries, and becoming convinced that his suspicion was correct. Addressing the Duke, he said very angrily to him, "Signor, your excellence will have to give account to God for what this good man does. This Don Quixote, or Don Simpleton, or whatever his name is." I've completely lost my place, hold on. Oh, there it is. "Cannot, I imagine, be such a blockhead as your excellence would have him, holding out encouragement to him to go on with his vagaries and follies." Then turning to address Don Quixote, said, "And you, numbskull, who put it into your head that you are knight-errant and vanquish giants and capture miscreants? Go your ways in a good hour, and in a good hour be it said to you. Go home and bring up your children if you have any, and attend to your business, and give over going wandering about the world, gaping and making a laughing stock of yourself to all who know you and all who don't. Where, in heaven's name, have you discovered that there are, or ever were, knights-errant? Where are the giants in Spain, or miscreants in La Mancha, or enchanted Dulcineas, or all the rest of the silly things they tell about you? Don Quixote listened attentively to the reverend gentleman's words, and as soon as he perceived he had done speaking, regardless of the presence of the Duke and Duchess, he sprang to his feet with angry looks and an agitated countenance, but said, but the reply deserves a chapter to itself. This one's gonna be a fun one. Yeah, now granted, we haven't really met for Pathfinder in like a solid 2 weeks, so I've been kind of getting the itch. The itch. I swear, I don't know what's up with my... Actually, you know what? Give me just a moment. I need to refill my water, because it's just occurred to me that I've been jibber-jabbering for about an hour and a half, and I'm plumb out. So I'll be right back. I'll kick it to, let me just kick this to intermission. I'll be back in 5 minutes, give or take.
Go get some snacks. Perhaps a carbonated soda.
Okay, I'm back. I've got my water. I actually need to take a sip of it, though, now that I'm thinking about it. I just filled it up. Because it seems like this is going to be another long-winded chapter. Ah, delicious. But yeah, long story short, is that I basically, because I was reading through the archetypes and I was like, were creature. Tempting. And then I says, so I naturally, I broached the subject to my, let me just make sure that I'm thinking of the right one. These are the right word, broached. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. We got that opened up because I basically asked, like, how do you feel about Transformers Beast Wars? To which he replied, well, I'm not sure which one you're referring to, whether it's the first run, the second run, or the recent movie, but all in all, I like the premise and I like the setting. And so I was like, yeah, because I'm playing an automaton, right? Robot kobold, basically. And so I was like, because technically, you can only take the were creature dedication if you've either been afflicted with the curse, or if you come from a descendant, if you're born into a line of true were creatures. Now, automatons are usually thinking like, oh, they're probably just made, right? They're not born, but actually, they're not really true automatons. They are they're the people of the late Giskin Empire. And so they basically, you take like the mind, or at least like that mental mind, you know, like the concept of the mind, the life force and soul of one of these Gistian people, or, you know, whoever, because I believe in one of the, I think somebody else was working on how to make more automatons, but basically, yeah, you just take that and then you put it in a robot body. You say, like, that's that. But technically speaking, that means that your character was born, means that, yes, by rules as written, it is kosher. The only thing that you can't be, though, is a beastkin, because those explicitly require the humanoid tag, but not were creature. That's a good idea. It works. You could also technically be like a were ooze, I guess. But it's a good question. I'm not actually sure. But anyway, let's get back to Don Quixote's reply. Oh, how long is this one? Oh my good gravy. Chapter 32. Of the reply Don Quixote gave his censurer, with other incidents, grave and droll. Don Quixote then, having risen to his feet, trembling from head to foot like a man dosed with mercury, said in a hurried and agitated voice, the place I am in, the place in which I stand, and the respect I have and always have had for the profession to which your worship belongs, hold and bind the hands of my just indignation, as well as for these reasons, as because I know, as everyone knows, that a gownsman's weapon is the same as a woman's, the tongue. I will with mine engage in equal combat with your worship, for whom one might have expected good advice instead of foul abuse. Pious, well-meant reproof requires a different demeanor and arguments of another sort. At any rate, to have reproved me in public and so roughly exceeds the bounds of proper reproof, for that comes better with gentleness than with rudeness, and it is not seemly to call the sinner roundly blockhead and booby without knowing anything of the sin that is reproved. Come, tell me, for which of the stupidities have you observed in me do you condemn and abuse me and bid me to go home and look after my house and wife and children without knowing whether I have any? Is nothing more needed than to get a footing by hook or by crook in other people's house to rule over the masters, and that perhaps, after having been brought up in all the straitness of some seminary, and without having seen more of the world that may lie within 20 or 30 leagues round, to fit one to lay down with law rashly for chivalry and pass judgment on knights errant? Is it haply an idle occupation, or is the time ill spent that is spent in roaming the world in quest not of its enjoyments, but of those arduous toils whereby the good mount upwards to the abodes of everlasting life? If gentlemen, great lords, nobles, men of high birth were to rate me as a fool, I should take it as an irreparable insult, but I care not a farthing if clerks, who have never entered upon or trod the paths of chivalry, should think me foolish. Knight I am, and knight I will die, if such be the pleasure of the Most High. Some take the broad road of overweening ambition, others that of mean and servile flattery, others that of deceitful hypocrisy, and some that of true religion. But I, led by my star, follow the narrow path of knight-errantry, and in pursuit of that calling, I despise wealth, but not honor. I have redressed injuries, righted wrongs, punished insolences, vanquished giants, and crushed monsters. I am in love for no other reason than it is incumbent on knights-errant to be so. But though I am no carnal-minded lover, but one of the chaste platonic sort. My intentions are always directed to worthy ends, and to do good to all and evil to none. And if he who means this does this, and makes this his practice, deserves to be called a fool, it is for your highnesses to say, O most excellent Duke and Duchess. Good, by God, cried Sancho, say no more in your own defense, mastermind, for there's nothing more in the world to be said, thought, or insisted on. And besides, when this gentleman denies, as he has, that there are or ever have been knights errant in the world, is it any wonder if he knows nothing of what he has been talking about? Perhaps, brother, said the ecclesiastic, you are that Sancho Panza that is mentioned, to whom your master has promised an island? Why, yes, I am, said Sancho, and what's more, I am the one who deserves it as much as anyone. I am one of the sort. Attach thyself to the good, and that will be one of them, and one of those, not with whom thou art bred, but with whom thou art fed, and of those, he who leans against a good tree, a good shade covers him. I have lent upon a good master, and I have been for months going about with him, and please God, I shall be just such another. Long life to him, and long life to me, for neither will he be in any want of empires to rule, or I of islands to govern. No, Sancho, my friend, well, certainly not, said the Duke, for in the name of Señor Don Quixote I confer upon you the government of one of no small importance that I have at my disposal. Go down on thy knees, Sancho, said Don Quixote, and kiss the feet of his excellence for the favor he has bestowed upon thee. Sancho obeyed, and on seeing this the ecclesiastic stood up from the table completely out of temper, exclaiming, by the gown I wear, I am almost inclined to say that your excellence is as great a fool as these sinners. No wonder they are mad, when people who are in their senses sanction their madness. I leave your excellence with them, for so long as they are in the house I will remain in my own, and spare myself the trouble of reproving what I cannot remedy. And without uttering another word or eating another morsel, he went off. The entreaties of the Duke and Duchess being entirely unavailing to stop him, not that the Duke said much to him, for he could not, because of the laughter his uncalled-for anger provoked. When he had done laughing, he said to Don Quixote, You have replied on your own behalf so stoutly, Sir Knight of the Lions, that there is no occasion to seek further satisfaction for this, which, though it may look like an offence, is not so at all, for as women can give no offence, no more can ecclesiastics, as you very well know. This is true, said Don Quixote, and the reason is that he who is not liable to offence cannot give offence to anyone. Women, children, and ecclesiastics, as they cannot defend themselves, though they may receive offence, cannot be insulted, because between the offence and the insult there is, as your excellence very well knows, this difference. The insult comes from one who is capable of offering it, and does so, and maintains it. The offence may come from any quarter without carrying insult. To take an example, a man is standing unsuspectingly in the street, and 10 others come up armed and beat him. He draws his sword and quits himself like a man, but the number of his antagonists makes it impossible for him to effect his purpose and avenge himself. This man suffers an offence, but not an insult. Another example will make the same thing plain. A man is standing with his back turned, another comes up and strikes him, and after striking him takes to flight without waiting an instant, and the other pursues him, but does not overtake him. He who received the blow received an offence, but not an insult, because an insult must be maintained. If he who struck him, though he did so sneakingly and treacherously, had drawn his sword and stood and faced him, then he who had been struck would have received offence and insult at the same time. Offence because he was struck treacherously, insult because he who struck him maintained what he had done, standing his ground without taking to flight, and so, according to the laws of the accursed duel, I may have received offence, but not insult, for neither women nor children can maintain it, nor can they wound, nor have they any way of standing their ground. And it is just the same that with those connected with religion. For these 3 sorts of persons are without arms, offensive or defensive, and so, though naturally they are bound to defend themselves, they have no right to offend anybody. And though I said just now I might have received offence, I say now certainly not, for he who cannot receive an insult can still less give one. For which reasons I ought not to feel, nor do I feel, aggrieved at what that good man said to me. I only wish he had stayed a little longer, that I might have shown him the mistake he makes in supposing and maintaining that there are not and never have been any knights errant in the world. Had Amadeus or any of his countless descendants heard him say as much, I am sure it would not have gone well with his worship. I will take my oath of that, said Sancho. They would have given him a slash that would have slit him down from top to toe like a pomegranate or a ripe melon. They were likely fellows to put up with the jokes of that sort. By my faith, I am certain if Reynaldos of Montalvan had heard the little man's words, he would have given him such a spank on the mouth he wouldn't have spoken for the next 3 years. Aye, let him tackle them, and he'll see how he gets out of their hands. The Duchess, as she listened to Sancho, was ready to die with laughter, and in her own mind she set him down as droller and madder than his master, and there were a good many just then who were of the same opinion. Don Quixote finally grew calm, and dinner came to an end, and as the cloth was removed, 4 damsels came in, one of them with a silver basin, another with a jug also of silver, a third with 2 fine white towels on her shoulder, and a fourth with her arms bared to the elbows, and in her white hands, for white they certainly were, a round ball of Naples soap. The one with the basin approached, and with arch composure and impudence thrust it under Don Quixote's chin, who, wondering at such ceremony, said never a word. Supposing it to be the custom of that country to wash beards instead of hands, he therefore stretched out his out as far as he could. And at the same instant that the jug began to pour, and the damsel with the soap rubbed his beard briskly, raising snowflakes, for the soap lather was no less white, not only over the beard, but all over the face and over the eyes of the submissive knight, so that they were perforce obliged to keep shut. The Duke and Duchess, who had not known anything about this, waited to see what came of this strange washing. The barber damsel, when he had him a hand's breadth deep in lather, pretended that there was no more water, and bade the one with the jug to go and fetch some, while Señor Don Quixote waited. She did so, and Don Quixote was left the strangest and most ludicrous figure that could be imagined. All those present, and there were a good many, were watching him, and as they saw him there with a half a yard of neck, half a yard of neck, and that uncommonly brown, his eyes shut and his beard full of soap, it was a great wonder, and only by great discretion, that they were able to restrain their laughter. The damsels, the concocters of the joke, kept their eyes down, not daring to look at their master and mistress, and as for them, laughter and anger struggled within them, and they knew not what to do, whether to punish the audacity of the girls, or to reward them for the amusement they had received from seeing Don Quixote in such a plight. At length the damsel with the jug returned, and they made an end of washing Don Quixote, and the one who carried the towels very deliberately wiped him and dried him, and all 4 together, making him a profound obeisance and curtsy. They were about to go when the Duke, lest Don Quixote should see through the joke, called out to one with the basin, saying, "Come and wash me, and take care that there is water enough." The girl, sharp-witted and prompt, came and placed the basin for the Duke as she had for Don Quixote, and they soon had him well soaped and washed, and having wiped him dry, they made their obeisance and retired. It appeared afterwards that the Duke had sworn that if they had not washed him as they had Don Quixote, he would have punished them for their impudence, which they adroitly atoned for by soaping him as well. Oh, I love this book. I love it, I love it, I love it. Sancho observed the ceremony of the washing very attentively, and said to himself, God bless me if it were the only custom in this country to wash squires' beards too as well as knights. For, by God and upon my soul, I want it badly, and if they gave me a scrape of the razor besides, I'd take it as a still greater kindness. What are you saying to yourself, Sancho? Asked the Duchess. I was saying, Signora, he replied, that in the courts of other princes, when the cloth is taken away, I have always heard say that they give water for the hands, but not lye for the beard, and that shows it is good to live long, that you may see much, to be sure, that they say too, he who lives a long life must undergo much evil. Though to undergo a washing of that sort is pleasure rather than pain. Oh, don't be uneasy, friend Sancho, I will take care that my damsels wash you, and even put you in the tub if necessary. I'll be content with the beard, said Sancho, at any rate for the present, and as for the future, God has decreed what it is to be. Attend to Sancho's request, Seneschal, said the Duchess, and do exactly what he wishes. The Seneschal replied that Senor Sancho should be obeyed in everything, and with that he went away to dinner and took Sancho along with him, while the Duke and Duchess and Don Quixote remained at table discussing a great variety of things, but all bearing on the calling of arms and knight-errantry. The Duchess begged Don Quixote, as he seemed to have a retentive memory, to describe and portray of her the beauty and features of the Lady Dulcinea del Toboso, for, judging by what fame trumpeted abroad of her beauty, she felt sure she must be the fairest creature in the world, nay, in all La Mancha. Don Quixote sighed upon hearing the Duchess's request, and said, if I could pluck out my heart and lay it on a plate on this table here before your Highness's eyes, it would spare my tongue the pain of telling what could hardly be thought of, for in it your Excellence would see her portrayed in full. But why should I attempt to depict and describe in detail and feature by feature the beauty of the peerless Dulcinea, the burden being one worthy of the other shoulders than mine, an enterprise wherein the pencils of Parahasius, Timanthes, and Apelles, and the graver of Lysippus ought to be employed, to paint in pictures and carve it in marble and bronze, and a Ciceronian and Demosthenian eloquence to sound its praises. What does Demosthenian mean, Senor Don Quixote? Said the Duchess. It is a word I have never heard in all my life. Demosthenian eloquence, said Don Quixote, means the eloquence of Demosthenes, as Ciceronian means that of Cicero, who were the two most eloquent orators in the world. True, said the Duke, you must have lost your wits to ask such a question. Nevertheless, Senor Don Quixote would greatly gratify us if he would depict her to us, for never fear, even in an outline or sketch, she will be something to make the fairest envious. I would do so certainly, said Don Quixote, had she not been blurred to my mind's eye by the misfortune that fell upon her for a short time since, one of such a nature that I am more ready to weep over it than to describe it. For your Highnesses must know that going a few days back to kiss her hands and receive her benediction, approbation, and permission for this third sally, I found her altogether a different being from the one I sought. I found her enchanted and changed from a princess into a peasant, and from fair to foul, from an angel to a devil, from fragrant to pestiferous, from refined to clownish, from a dignified lady into a jumping tomboy, and in a word, from Dulcinea del Toboso into a coarse Sayago wench. Oh, God bless me, said the Duke aloud at this. Who can have done the world such an injury? Who can have robbed it of the beauty that gladdened it, of the grace and gaiety that charmed it, of the modesty that shed a luster upon it? Oh, hold on, give me just a moment. That's better. I'm just gonna stand and read here for a little while. Who, replied Don Quixote, who could it be but some malignant enchanter of the many who persecute me out of envy, that accursed race born into the world to obscure and bring to naught the achievements of the good and glorify and exalt the deeds of the wicked. Enchanters have persecuted me, enchanters persecute me still, and the enchanters shall continue to persecute me until they have sunk me and my lofty chivalry into the deep abyss of oblivion. And they injure me and wound me where they know I feel it most, for to deprave a knight-errant of his lady is to deprive him of the eyes he sees with, of the sun that gives him light, of the food whereby he lives. Many a time before have I said it, and I say it now once more, a knight-errant without a lady is like a tree without leaves, a building without a foundation, or a shadow without the body that causes it. Oh, there's no denying it, said the Duchess, but still, if we are to believe the history of Don Quixote that has come out here lately with general applause, it is to be inferred from it, if I mistake not, that you never saw the Lady Dulcinea, and that said lady is nothing in the world but an imaginary lady, one that you yourself begot and gave birth to in your brain, and adorned with whatever charms and perfections you chose. But there is a great deal to be said on that point, said Don Quixote. God knows whether there be any Dulcinea or not in the world, or whether she is imaginary or not imaginary. These are things the proof of which must not be pushed to extreme lengths. I have not begotten nor given birth to my lady, though I behold her as she needs must be, a lady who contains in herself all the qualities to make her famous throughout the world. Beautiful without blemish, dignified without haughtiness, tender and yet modest, gracious from courtesy, and courteous from good breeding. And lastly, of exalted lineage, because beauty shines forth and excels with a higher degree of perfection upon good blood than in the fair of lowly birth. "Oh, that is true," said the Duke. "But Signor Don Quixote will give me leave to say that I am constrained to say by the story of his exploits that I have read, from which it is to be inferred that granting there is a Dulcinea in el Toboso, or out of it, and that she is the highest degree beautiful as you have described her to us, as regards the loftiness of her lineage, she is not on a par with the Orianas, Alestrajares, Madismas, or others of that sort, with whom, as you well know, the histories abound." "To that I may reply," said Don Quixote, "that Dulcinea is the daughter of her own works, and that virtues rectify blood, and that lowly virtue is more to be regarded and esteemed than exalted vice. Dulcinea, besides, has that within her that may raise her to be a crowned and sceptered queen. For the merit of a fair and virtuous woman is capable of performing greater miracles, and virtually, though not formally, she has in herself higher fortunes." "I protest, Signor Don Quixote," said the Duchess, "that in all you say you go most cautiously and lead in hand, as the saying is. Henceforth I will believe myself. And I will take care that everyone in my house believes, even my lord the Duke if needs be, that there is a Dulcinea in El Toboso, and that she is living today, and that she is beautiful and nobly born, and deserves to have such a knight as Signor Don Quixote in her service, and that is the highest praise that is in my power to give her, or that I could think of." "But I cannot help entertaining a doubt, and having a certain grudge against Sancho Panza. The doubt is this, that the aforesaid history declares that said Sancho Panza, when he carried a letter on your worship's behalf to the said Lady Dulcinea, found her sifting a sack of wheat, and more by token it says it was red wheat, a thing which makes me doubt the loftiness of her lineage." To this Don Quixote made answer, "Oh, Signora, your highness must know that everything, or almost everything, that happens to me transcends the ordinary limits of what happens to other knights errant, whether it be that it is directed by the inscrutable will of destiny, or by the malice or some jealous enchanter. Now it is an established fact that all or most famous knights errant have some special gift, one that being proof against enchantment, another that of being made of such invulnerable flesh that he cannot be wounded, as was the famous Roland, one of the 12 peers of France, of whom it is related that he could not be wounded except in the sole of his left foot, and that it must be with the point of a stout pin, and not with any other sort of weapon whatever. And so, when Bernardo del Carpio slew him at Roncesaves, finding that he could not wound him with steel, he lifted him up from the ground in his arms and strangled him, calling to mind seasonably the death which Hercules afflicted on Antaeus, the fierce giant that they say was the son of Terra. I would infer that what I have mentioned, that perhaps I may have some gift of this kind, not that of being invulnerable, because experience has many times proved to me that I am of tender flesh, and not at all impenetrable, nor that of being proof against enchantment. For I have already seen myself thrust into a cage in which all the world would not have been able to confine me except by force of enchantments. But as I delivered myself from that one, I am inclined to believe that there is no other that can hurt me, and so these enchanters, seeing that they cannot exert their vile craft upon my person, revenge themselves on what I love most, and seek to rob me of life by maltreating that of Dulcinea in whom I live. And therefore I am convinced that when my squire carried my message to her, they changed her into a common peasant girl engaged in such a mean occupation as sifting wheat. I have already said, however, that what wheat was not red wheat, nor wheat at all, but grains of orient pearl. And as proof of this, I must tell your highness that coming to El Toboso a short time back, I was altogether unable to discover the palace of Dulcinea, and that the next day, though Sancho, my squire, saw her in her own shape, which is the fairest in the world, to me she appeared to be a coarse, ill-favoured farm wench, and by no means a well-spoken one, she who is propriety itself, and so, as I am not, and so far as no one can judge, cannot be enchanted, she it is that is enchanted, that is smitten, that is altered, changed, and transformed. In her have my enemies revenged themselves upon me, and for her shall I live in ceaseless tears until I can see her in her pristine state. I have mentioned this lest anyone should mind what Sancho said about Dulcinea's winnowing or sifting as they changed her to me. It is no wonder if they changed her to him. Dulcinea is illustrious and well-born, and one of the gentle families of El Toboso, which there are many ancient and good. Therein most assuredly not small is the share of the peerless Dulcinea, through whom her town will be famous and celebrated in ages to come, as Troy was through Helen and Spain through La Cava, though with a better title and tradition. For another thing, I would have your graces understand that Sancho Panza is one of the drollest squires that ever served knights errant. Sometimes there is a simplicity about him that is so acute that it is an amusement to try and make out whether he is simple or sharp. He has mischievous tricks that stamp him rogue, and blundering ways to prove him a booby. He doubts everything and believes everything. When I fancy he is on the point of coming down headlong from sheer stupidity, he comes out with something shrewd that sends him up to the skies. After all, I would not exchange him for another squire, though I were given a city to boot. And therefore I am in doubt whether it will be well to send him to the government your highness has bestowed upon him, though I perceive in him a certain aptitude for the work of governing, so that with a little trimming of his understanding he would manage any government as easily as the king does his taxes, and moreover we know already ample experience that it does not require much cleverness or much learning to be a governor, for there are 100 round about us that scarcely know how to read and govern like gerfalcons. What is a gerfalcon? Or a gerfalcon? I'm not really sure. Hold on. Okay, they're just a type of falcon. But where are they from? Quick, to Wikipedia. Ah, I see. They're just a type of... They're one of the largest species of falcons. I see. Yeah, anyway. Let me see here. Uh-oh. I've completely lost myself. Ah, they're there. The main point is that they should have good intentions and be desirous of doing right in all things, for they will never be at a loss for persons to advise and direct them in what they have to do, like those knight governors do, being no lawyers, pronounce sentences with the aid of an assessor. My advice to him will be to take no bribe and surrender no right, and I have some other little matters in reserve that shall be produced in due season for Sancho's benefit, and the advantage of the island he is to govern. The Duke and Duchess and Don Quixote had reached this point in their conversation when they heard voices and a great hubbub in the palace, and Sancho burst abruptly into the room, all glowing with anger. With a straining cloth by way of a bib, and followed by several servants, or more properly speaking, kitchen boys and other underlings, one of whom carried a small trough full of water that, from its color and impurity, was plainly dishwater. The one with the trough pursued him and followed him everywhere he went, endeavoring with the utmost persistence to thrust it under his chin, while another kitchen boy seemed anxious to watch his beard. "Oh, what is all this, brother?" asked the Duchess. "What is it? What do you want to do to this good man? Do you forget he is governor-elect?" To which the barber kitchen boy replied, "The gentleman will not let himself be washed, as is customary, and as my lord and the senior his master have been." "Yes, I will," said Sancho in a great rage, "but I would like it to be with cleaner towels, clearer lye, and not such dirty hands, for there's not so much difference between me and my master that he should be washed with angel's water and I with devil's lye. The customs of countries and princes' palaces are only good so long as they give no annoyance, but the way of washing they have here is worse than doing penance. I have a clean beard, and I don't require to be refreshed in that fashion, and whoever comes to wash me or touch a hair on my head, I mean to say my beard, with all due respect be it said, that I'll give him such a punch that it will leave my fist sunk in his skull, for ceremonies and soapings of this sort are more like jokes than the polite attentions of one's host." The Duchess was ready to die with laughter when she saw Sancho's rage and heard his words, but it was no pleasure to Don Quixote to see him in such a starry state, with the dingy towel about him and the hangers-on of the kitchen all around him. So, making a low bow to the Duke and Duchess as if to ask their permission to speak, he addressed the rout in a dignified tone. "Hola, gentlemen! You let that youth alone and go back to where you came from, and anywhere else if you like. My squire is as clean as any other person, and those troughs are as bad as narrow, thin-necked jars to him. Take my advice and leave him alone, for neither he nor I understand joking." Sancho took the word out of his mouth and went on, "Nay, let them come and try their jokes on the country bumpkin, for it's about as likely I'll stand them as that it is now midnight. Let them bring me a comb here, or what they please, and curry this beard of mine, and if they get anything out of it that offends against cleanliness, then let them clip me to the skin." Upon this, the Duchess, laughing all the while, said, "Sancho Panza is right, and always will be in all he says. He is clean, and as he says himself, he does not require to be washed, and if our ways do not please him, he is free to choose. Besides, you promoters of cleanliness have been excessively careless and thoughtless. I don't know if I ought not to say audacious to bring troughs and wooden utensils and kitchen dishclouts instead of basins and jugs of pure gold and towels of Holland. To such a person and such a beard, but after all you're ill-conditioned and ill-bred, and spiteful as you are, you cannot help showing the grudge you have against the squires of knights-errant." The impudent servitors, and even the seneschal who came with them, took the Duchess to be speaking in earnest, so they removed the straining cloth from Sancho's neck, and with something like shame and confusion of face, went off all of them and left him. Whereupon he, seeing himself safe out of that extreme danger, as it seemed to him, ran and fell on his knees before the Duchess, saying, "From great ladies great favors may be looked for. This which your grace has done to me cannot be requited with less than wishing I was dubbed a knight-errant, to devote myself to all the days of my life to the service of so exalted a lady. I am a laboring man. My name is Sancho Panza. I am married. I have children." "Oh, hi, Red Giraffe. Glad to see that you could drop on by. We're reading a little bit more Don Quixote. We're almost finished with chapter 33, I think. I need to double check here. I think we might be coming up on 34. I hope things are going well. Let me see here. Where was I? "And I am serving as a squire. If in any one of these ways I can serve your highness, I will not be longer in obeying than your grace in commanding." "It is easy to see, Sancho," replied the Duchess, "that you have learned to be polite in the school of politeness itself. I mean to say, it is easy to see that you have been nursed in the bosom of Señor Don Quixote." "Murder in midwinter, eh? Well, I'll tell you, actually, you know what? Let me pen that down real quick so as I don't forget it. Murder in Midwinter. Actually, let me finish the chapter first, real quick, because I'll still have that on. Name is like made of sticks. I see. I'll have to take a gander here, but first let's see here. Ah, yes. I mean to say, it is easy to see that you have been nursed in the bosom of Senor Don Quixote, who is, of course, the cream of good breeding and flower of ceremony, or ceremony, as you would say yourself. Fair be the fortunes of such a master and such a servant, the one the cynosure of knight-errantry, the other star of squirely fidelity. Made out of tree branches. Huh. Rise, Sancho, my friend. I will repay your courtesy by taking care that my lord the Duke makes good to you the promised gift of the government as soon as possible. With this, the conversation came to an end, and Don Quixote retired to take his midday sleep. But the Duchess begged Sancho, unless he had a very great desire to go to sleep, to come and spend the afternoon with her and her damsels in a very cool chamber. Sancho replied that though he certainly had the habit of sleeping 4 or 5 hours in the heat of the day in summer, to serve her excellence, he would try with all his might not to sleep even one that day, and that he would come in obedience to her command, and with that he went off. The Duke gave fresh orders with respect to treating Don Quixote as a knight-errant, without departing even in smallest particular from the style in which, as the stories tell us, they used to treat the knights of old. So the name is made of... yeah, now we're up to chapter 33. Name is made of sticks. I see, you're talking about the cover, I think. Assuming that we're talking about the one by one Fleur Hitchcock. Very good book. Well, I'll tell you what, let me, you know what? Sure, let's add it to the list. A list of books to look at. I'll see if I'm able to, ooh, never mind. One of these is Drive. There we go. You know what? Let's just crack open a new document then. List of books to read. List of cool books to read. Yeah. I'm looking at it. I think I do see it. It's a nice touch. List of cool books. So first, though, granted, is that we've got we do have Dream of the Red Chamber next on our docket. So I will take Murder in Midwinter. Winter. Also, I hope your new year went well. I know I haven't streamed since last year. I bet people were kind of a little concerned that I might have abandoned them. Murder in Winter by Fleur Hitchcock. Alright, I totally forgot to ask. But also, how was your, that's good, that's good. I completely forgot to ask Neon how her, New Year's went. But I hope it went well. I'll need to remember to ask next time I see her. Or at least, well, next time I, you know, post in chat. But let's see here. Let me actually grab a little bit of water. I am very glad to hear that, though. I'm also thinking, tomorrow, I'll probably do a little bit of Ghost Runner 2, because I've been very excited for that one. In fact, I ended up playing through the whole of the first Ghost Runner on that one Tuesday before my before Christmas rolled around, because it was another one of my followers, Jenkel, had recommended Ultra Kill, which admittedly I am having a very fun time. I'm working on getting up through the cyber grind. I think I'm up to like 38. Yeah, 38 sounds right. But either way, we'll get back to my reading here. Either that or maybe some type of horror game. I don't know. I've been having like a Jonesin for it, you know. Part of me is thinking maybe like the Dead Space remake again. Granted, I've played it before, but it is, I'd say, one of my personal favorite horror titles. But anyway. Chapter 33. Of the delectable discourse which the Duchess and her damsels held with Sancho Panza, well worth reading and noting. The history records that Sancho did not sleep that afternoon, but in order to keep his word, came before he had well done dinner, to visit the Duchess, who, finding enjoyment in listening to him, made him sit down beside her on a low seat, though Sancho, out of good breeding, wanted not to sit down. The Duchess, however, told him that he was to sit down as governor and talk as squire, as in both respects he was worthy of even the chair that Sidroy Diaz the Campeador. Sancho shrugged his shoulders, obeyed, and sat down. And the Duchess's damsels and duennas gathered around him, waiting in profound silence to hear what he would say. It was the Duchess, however, who spoke first, saying, "Now that we are alone, and that there is nobody here to overhear us, I should be glad if the Signor Governor would relieve me of certain doubts I have, rising out of the history of the great Don Quixote that is now in print. One, inasmuch as worthy Sancho never saw Dulcinea, I mean the Lady Dulcinea del Toboso, nor took Don Quixote's letter to her, for it was left in the memorandum book in the Sierra Morena. How did he dare to invent the answer, and all that about finding her sifting wheat, the whole story being a deception and falsehood, and so much to the prejudice of the peerless Dulcinea's good name, a thing that is not at all becoming the character and fidelity of a good squire?" At these words, Sancho, without uttering one reply, got up from his chair, and with noiseless steps, with his body bent and his finger on his lips, went all around the room, lifting up the hangings, and this done, he came back to his seat and said, "Now, Signora, that I have seen that there is no one except the bystanders listening to us on the sly, I will answer what you have asked me, and all you may ask me without fear or dread. And the first thing I have got to say is that for my own part I hold my master Don Quixote to be stark mad, though sometimes he says things that to my mind, and indeed everybody's that listens to him, are so wise and run in such a straight furrow that Satan himself could not have said them better. But for all that, really and beyond all question, it's my firm belief he is cracked. Well, then, as this is clear to my mind, I can venture to make him believe things that have neither head nor tail, like that affair of the answer to the letter, and that other of 6 or 8 days ago, which is not yet in history, that is to say, the affair of the enchantment of my lady Dulcinea, for I made him believe she is enchanted, though there's no more truth in it than over the hills of Ubeda." The Duchess begged him to tell her about the enchantment or deception, so Sancho told the whole story exactly as it had happened, and his hearers were not a little amused by it. And then resuming, the Duchess said, "In consequence of what Sancho has told me, a doubt starts up in my mind, and there comes a kind of whisper to my ear that says if Don Quixote be mad, crazy, and cracked, and Sancho Panza, his squire, knows it, and notwithstanding serves and follows him, and goes on trusting to his empty promises, then there can be no doubt he must be still madder and sillier than his master. And that being so, it will be cast in your teeth, Signora Duchess, that if you give said Sancho an island to govern, for how will he who does not know how to govern himself know how to govern others?" "By God, Signora," said Sancho, "but that doubt comes timely, but your grace may say it out and speak plainly, or as you like, for I know what you say is true. And if I were wise, I should have left my master long ago, but this was my fate, this was my bad luck. I can't help it. I must follow him. We're from the same village. I've eaten his bread. I'm fond of him. I'm grateful. He gave me his ass colts, and above all, I'm faithful. It's quite impossible for anything to separate us except the pickaxe and shovel. And if your highness does not like to give me the government you promised, God made me without it, and maybe your not giving it to me will be all the better for my conscience, for, fool as I am, I know the proverb, to her hurt the ant got wings. And it may be that Sancho the squire will get to heaven sooner than Sancho the governor. They make as good bread here as in France, and by night all cats are grey. And a hard case enough his, who hasn't broken his fast at 2 in the afternoon. And there's no stomach in hand's breadth bigger than another, and the same can be filled with straw or hay, as the saying is, and the little birds of the field have God for their purveyor and caterer, and 4 yards of quitch and a frieze keep one warmer than 4 Segovia broadcloth. And when we quit this world and are put underground, the prince travels by as narrow a path as the journeyman, and the Pope's body does not take up more feet of earth than the sacristan's, for all that the one is higher than the other. For when we go to our graves, we all pack ourselves up and make ourselves small, or rather they pack us up and make us small in spite of us, and then good night to us. And I say once more, if your ladyship does not like to give me the island because I am a fool, like a wise man I will take care to give myself no trouble about it. I have heard say that behind the cross there's the devil, and all that glitters is not gold, and that from among the oxen, and the plows and the yokes, Wamba the husbandman was taken to be made king of Spain, and from among brocades and pleasures and riches, Roderick was taken to be devoured by adders, if the verses of the old ballads don't lie. But to be sure they don't lie, exclaimed Dona Rodriguez, the duenna, who was one of the listeners. Why, there's a ballad that says they put King Rodrigo alive in a tomb full of toads and adders and lizards, and that 2 days afterwards the king, in a plaintive, feeble voice, cried out from within the tomb, "They gnaw me now, they gnaw me now, there where I most did sin." And according to the gentleman, has a good reason to say he would rather be a laboring man than a king if vermin are to eat him. The Duchess could not help laughing at the simplicity of her duenna, or wondering at the language and proverbs of Sancho, to whom she said, "Worthy Sancho knows very well that when once a knight has made a promise he strives to keep it, though it should cost him his life. My lord and husband the duke, though not one of the errant sort, is none the less a knight for that reason, and will keep his word about the promised island in spite of the envy and malice of the world. Let Sancho be of good cheer, for when he least expects it, he will find himself seated on the throne of his island and seat of dignity, and will take possession of his government, that he may discard it for another of 3-bordered brocade. The charge I give him is to be careful how he governs his vassals, bearing in mind that they are all loyal and well-born." "As to governing them well," said Sancho, oh dear. "There's no need of charging me to that, for I'm kind-hearted by nature and full of compassion for the poor. There's no stealing the loaf from him who needs and bakes. And by my faith, I won't do to throw false dice with me. I'm an old dog, and I know all about tus. Tus? Good question. And by my faith, it won't be to throw false dice. No, sorry, hold on. I can be wide awake if need be, and I don't let clouds come before my eyes, for I know where the shoe pinches me. I say so, because with me the good will have support and protection, and the bad neither footing nor access. It seems to me that in governments, to make a beginning is everything, and maybe, after having been governor a fortnight, I'll take kindly to the work, and know more about it than the field labor I've been brought up to." Oh, golly. "You're right, Sancho," said the Duchess, "for one is not born ready taught. For one is not born ready taught, and the bishops are made out of men and not out of stones. But to return to the subject we were discussing just now, the enchantment of the Lady Dulcinea, I look upon it as certain, and something more than evident that Sancho's idea of practicing a deception upon his master and making him believe that the peasant girl was Dulcinea, and that if he did not recognize her, it must be because she was enchanted, was all a device of one of the enchanters who persecute Don Quixote. For in truth and earnest, I know from good authority that the coarse country wench who jumped up on the ass was and is Dulcinea del Toboso, and that worthy Sancho, though he fancies himself the deceiver, is the one that is deceived, and that there is no more reason to doubt the truth of this than of anything else we never saw. Signor Sancho Panza must know that we too have enchanters here that are well disposed to us and tell us what goes on in the world plainly and distinctly without subterfuge or deception. And believe me, Sancho, that agile country lass was and is Dulcinea del Toboso, who is as much enchanted as the mother that bore her. And when we least expect it, we shall see her in her own proper form, and then Sancho will be disabused of the error he is under at present. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, that's very possible, said Sancho Panza, and now I'm willing to believe what my master says about what he saw in the cave of Montesinos, where he says he saw the Lady Dulcinea del Toboso in the very same dress and apparel that I said I had seen her in when I enchanted her all to please myself. It must be all exactly the other way, as your ladyship says, because it is impossible to suppose that out of my poor wit such a cunning trick could be concocted in a moment. Nor do I think my master is so mad that by my weak and feeble persuasion he could be made to believe a thing so out of all reason. But, Signora, your excellence must not therefore think me ill-disposed, for a dolt like me is not bound to see into the thoughts and plots of those vile enchanters. I invented all that to escape my master's scolding, and not with any intention of hurting him, and if it has turned out differently, there is a God in heaven who judges our hearts. That is true, said the Duchess, but tell me, Sancho, what is this you say about the cave of Montesinos, for I should like to know. Sancho, upon this, related to her word for word what has been said already touching that adventure, and having heard it, the Duchess said, from this occurrence it may be inferred that as the great Don Quixote says, he saw there the same country wench Sancho saw on the way from El Toboso, it is, no doubt, Dulcinea, and that there are some very active and exceedingly busy enchanters about. So I say, said Sancho, and if my lady Dulcinea is enchanted, so much the worse for her. I'm not going to pick a quarrel with my master's enemies, who seem to be many and spiteful. The truth is that that the one I saw was a country wench, and I set her down to be a country wench, and if that was Dulcinea, it must not be laid at my door, nor should I be called to answer for it or take the consequences. But they must go nagging me at every step. Sancho said it, Sancho did it, Sancho here, Sancho there, and as if Sancho was nobody at all, and not the same Sancho Panza that's now going all over the world in books, so Samson Carrasco told me. And he's at any rate one that's a bachelor of Salamanca, and people of that sort can't lie, except when the wind seizes them or they have some very good reason for it. So there's no occasion for anybody to quarrel with me, and then I have a good character, and as I have heard my master say, a good name is better than great riches. Let them only stick me into this government, and they'll see wonders, for one who has been a good squire will be a good governor. All worthy Sancho's observations, said the Duchess, are Catonian sentences, or at any rate out of the very heart of Michael Verino himself, who Florentibus occidit annis. In fact, to speak in his own style, under a bad cloak there's often a good drinker. Indeed, Signora, said Sancho, I never yet drank out of wickedness. From thirst I have very likely, for I have nothing of the hypocrite in me. I drink when I'm inclined, or if I'm not inclined, when they offer it to me, so as not to look rather straight-laced or ill-bred, for when a friend drinks one's health, what heart can be so hard as not to return it? But if I put on my shoes, I don't dirty them. Besides, squires to knights errants mostly drink water, for they are always wandering among woods, forests, and meadows, mountains, and crags, without a drop of wine to be had if they give their eyes for it. So I believe, said the Duchess, and now let Sancho go and take his sleep, and we will talk by and by at greater length and settle how he may go and stick himself to the government, as he says. Sancho once more kissed the Duchess's hands and entreated her to let good care be taken of his Dapple, for he was the light of his eyes. What is Dapple? Said the Duchess. My ass, said Sancho, which, not to mention him by that name, I am accustomed to call Dapple. I begged this Lady Duenna here to take care of him when I came into the castle, and she got as angry as if I had said she was ugly or old, though it ought to be more natural and proper for duennas to feed asses than to ornament chambers. God bless me! What a spite a gentleman of my village had against these ladies. He must have been some clown, said Donna Rodriguez, the duenna, for if he had been a gentleman and well-born, he would have exalted them higher than the horns of the moon. That will do, said the Duchess. No more of this. Hush, Donna Rodriguez, and let Sancho Panza rest easy and leave the treatment of Dapple in my charge. For, as he is a treasure of Sancho's, I'll put him on the apple of my eye. It'll be enough for him to be in the stables, said Sancho, for neither he nor I are worthy to rest a moment in the apple of your highness's eye. And I'd as soon stab myself as consent to it, for though my master says that in civilities it is better to lose by a card too many than a card too few, when it comes to civilities to asses we must mind what we are about and keep within due bounds. Take him to your government, Sancho, said the Duchess, and there you will be able to make as much of him as you like, and even release him from his work and pension him off. Oh, don't think, Signor Duchess, that you have said anything absurd, said Sancho. I've seen more than 2 asses go to governments, and for me to take mine with me would be nothing new. Sancho's words made the Duchess laugh again and gave her fresh amusement, and dismissing him to sleep, she went away to tell the Duke the conversation she had with him. Between them, they plotted and arranged to play a joke upon Don Quixote that was to be a rare one and entirely in knight-errantry style, and in that same style they practiced several upon him, so much in keeping and so clever that they formed the best adventures this great history contains. Alright, let's see here. I'm gonna have another just a quick sip. Ah. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking of rolling with I'm thinking maybe Ghost Run. I'm torn between Ghost Runner or Dead Space. Tomorrow, you know what? I might put it to a poll on the Twitter. Yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. But anyway, let's see here. Chapter 34, which relates how they learned the way in which they were to disenchant the peerless Dulcinea del Toboso, which is one of the rarest adventures in this book. So this will probably be my last, you know what, let's see here. You know what, I'll get to chapter 36. I think we'll go for like a 5 chapters, a reading session, because I'll be perfectly honest, I realize that I've kind of got some other business to handle, apparently. Some people are pestering me, so I'll have to, we'll get this wrapped up and then I'll scatter to the winds. But let me see here. Great was the pleasure the Duke and Duchess took in the conversation of Don Quixote and Sancho Panza, and more bent than ever upon the plan they had of practicing some jokes upon them that should have the look and appearance of adventures. They took as their basis of action what Don Quixote had already told them about the cave of Montesinos, in order to play him a famous one. But what the Duchess marveled at above all was that Sancho's simplicity could be so great as to make him believe in absolute truth that Dulcinea had been enchanted, when it was he himself who had been the enchanter and trickster in the business. Having therefore instructed their servants in everything they were to do, 6 days afterwards they took him out to hunt, with as great a retinue of huntsmen and beaters as a crowned king. They presented Don Quixote with a hunting suit and Sancho with another of the finest green cloth, but Don Quixote declined to put his on, saying that he must soon return to the hard pursuit of arms and could not carry wardrobes or stores with him. Sancho, however, took what they gave him, meaning to sell it at the first opportunity. The appointed day had arrived. Don Quixote armed himself, and Sancho arrayed himself and mounted on his Dapple, for he would not give him up though they offered him a horse. He placed himself in the midst of the troop of huntsmen. The Duchess came out splendidly attired, and Don Quixote, in pure courtesy and politeness, held the rein of her palfrey, though the Duke wanted not to allow him, and at last they reached a wood that lay between two mountains, where, after occupying various posts, ambushes, and paths, and distributing the party in different positions, the hunt began with great noise, shouting, and hallooing, so that between the baying of the hounds and the blowing of the horns they could not hear one another. The Duchess dismounted, and with a sharp boar spear in her hand, posted herself where she knew the wild boars were in the habit of passing. The Duke and Don Quixote likewise dismounted and placed themselves one at each side of her. Sancho took up a position in the rear of all without dismounting from Dapple, whom he dared not to desert lest some mischief should befall him. Scarcely had they taken their stand in a line with several of their servants, when they saw a huge boar closely pressed by the hounds and followed by the huntsmen making towards them, grinding his teeth and tusks and scattering foam from his mouth, and as soon as he saw him, Don Quixote, bracing his shield on his arm and drawing his sword, advanced to meet him. The Duke with boar spear did the same, but the Duchess would have gone in front of them, all had not the Duke prevented her. Sancho alone, deserting Dapple at the sight of the mighty beast, took to his heels as hard as he could and strove in vain to mount a tall oak. As he was clinging to a branch, however, halfway up in his struggle to reach the top of the bough, such was his ill luck and hard fate, gave way, and caught in his fall by the broken limb of the oak, he hung suspended in the air, unable to reach the ground. Finding himself in this position, and that the green coat was beginning to tear, and reflecting that if the fierce animal came this way, he might be able to get at him, he began to utter such cries and call for help so earnestly that all who heard him and did not see him felt sure that he must be in the teeth of some wild beast. In the end, the tusked boar fell, pierced by the blades of the many spears they held in front of him. Don Quixote, turning round at the cries of Sancho, for he knew by them that it was he, saw him hanging from the oak head downwards, with Dapple, who did not forsake him in his distress, close beside him, and Cid Hamit observes that he seldom saw Sancho Panza without seeing Dapple, or Dapple without seeing Sancho Panza. Such was their attachment and loyalty to one another. Don Quixote went over and unhooked Sancho, who, as soon as he found himself on the ground, looked at the rent in his hunting coat, and was grieved to the heart, for he thought he had got patrimonial estate in that suit. Meanwhile, they had slung the mighty boar across the back of a mule, and having covered it with sprigs of rosemary and branches of myrtle, they bore it away as the spoils of victory to some large field tents which had been pitched in the middle of the wood, where they found the tables laid and dinner served in such grand and sumptuous style that it was easy to see the rank and magnificence of those who had provided it. Sancho, as he showed the rents in his torn suit to the Duchess, observed, If we had been hunting hares or after small birds, my coat would have been safe from the being in the plight it's in. I don't know what pleasure one can find in lying in wait for an animal that may take your life with his tusk if he gets it at you. I recollect having heard an old ballad sung that says, By bears be thou devoured, as erst was famous Sevilla. That, said Don Quixote, was a Gothic king, who, going a-hunting, was devoured by a bear. Just so, I would not have kings and princes expose themselves to such dangers for the sake of a pleasure, which, to my mind, ought not be one, as it consists in killing an animal that has done no harm whatsoever. Quite the contrary, Sancho. You are wrong there, said the Duke, for hunting is more suitable and requisite for kings and princes than anyone else. The chase is the emblem of war. It has stratagems, wiles, and crafty devices for overcoming the enemy in safety. In extreme cold and intolerable heat have to be borne, indolence and sleep are despised, and bodily powers are invigorated. The limbs of him who engages in it are made supple, and in a word, it is a pursuit which may be followed without injury to anyone and with enjoyment to many, and the best of it is not for everybody, as field sports of other sorts are, except hawking, which is also only for kings and great lords. Reconsider your opinion, therefore, Sancho, and when your governor take to hunting, you will find the good of it. And when you are governor, take to hunting. Oh, nay, said Sancho. The good governor should have a broken leg and keep at home. It would be nice. It would be a nice thing after people had been at the trouble of coming to look for him on business. The governor were to be away in the forest enjoying himself. The governor would go on badly in that fashion. By my faith, Signor, hunting and amusements are more fit for idlers than for governors. What I intend to amuse myself with is playing all fours at Easter time. What is all fours? Playing all fours? Ah, I see. It's an old card game. Not entirely sure what the goal of it is. I'm not going to read that far. Where was I? Ah, yes. And bowls on Sundays and holidays, for these huntings don't suit my condition or agree with my conscience. God granted it may turn out so, said the Duke, because it's a long step from saying to doing. Pardon me. Let me see here. Be that as it may, said Sancho, pledges don't distress a good prayer, and he whom God helps does better than he who gets up early, and it's the tripes that carry the feet, and not the feet the tripes. I mean to say that if God gives me help and I do my duty honestly, no doubt I'll govern better than a gerfalcon. Nay, let them only put a finger in my mouth, and they'll see whether I can bite or not. Oh my. Let's see here. The curse of God and all his saints upon thee, thou accursed Sancho, exclaimed Don Quixote. When will the day come, as I have often said to thee, that I shall hear thee make one single coherent rational remark without proverbs? Pray, your highness, leave this fool alone, for he will grind your souls between, not to say 2, but 2,000 proverbs, dragged in as much a season, and in as much to the purpose as, may God grant as much health to him, or to me if I want to listen to them. Sancho's proverbs, said the Duchess, are, though more in number than the Greek commanders, are not therefore less to be esteemed for the conciseness of the maxims. For my own part, I can say they give me more pleasure than others, that may be better brought in and more seasonably introduced. In pleasant conversations of this sort, they passed out of the tent into the wood, and the day was spent in visiting some of the posts and hiding places, and the night closed in, not, however, as brilliantly or tranquilly as it might have been expected at the season, for it was then midsummer, but bringing with it a kind of haze that greatly aided the project of the Duke and Duchess. And thus, as night began to fall, and a little after twilight set in, suddenly the whole of the woods on all four sides seemed to be on fire, and shortly after, here, there, on all sides, a vast number of trumpets and other military instruments were heard, as if several troops of cavalry were passing through the wood. The blaze of the fire and the noise of the warlike instruments almost blinded the eyes and deafened the ears of those that stood by, and indeed of all who were in the wood. Then there were repeated lelies? Yeah, whatever. After the fashion of the Moors, when they rush to battle, trumpets and clarions brayed, drums beat, pipes played so unceasingly and so fast that he could not have had any senses who did not lose them with the confused din of so many instruments. The Duke was astounded, the Duchess amazed, Don Quixote wondering, Sancho Panza trembling, and indeed even they who were aware of the cause were frightened. In their fear silence fell upon them, and a postilion, in the guise of a demon, passed in front of them, blowing in lieu of a bugle a huge hollow horn that gave out a horrible hoarse note. "Ho there, brother courier!" cried the Duke. "Who are you? Where are you going? What troops are these that seem to be passing through the wood?" To which the courier replied in a harsh, discordant voice, "I am the devil! I am in search of Don Quixote de la Mancha." Those who are coming this way are 6 troops of enchanters who are bringing on a triumphal car, the peerless Dulcinea del Toboso. She comes under enchantment together with the gallant Frenchman Montesinos to give instructions to Don Quixote as to how, she said, the lady may be disenchanted. If you were the devil, as you say, and as your appearance indicates, said the Duke, you would have known that said knight Don Quixote of La Mancha, for you have him here before you. By God and upon my conscience, said the devil, I never observed it, for my mind is occupied with so many different things that I was forgetting the main thing I came about. The demon must be an honest fellow and a good Christian. Hold on, let me give that one another read. Well, this demon must be an honest fellow and a good Christian, said Sancho, for if he wasn't, he wouldn't swear by God and his conscience. I feel sure now there must be some good souls even in hell itself. Let me see here. Oh, I think my eyebrows are stuck. Oh well. Without dismounting, the demon then turned to Don Quixote and said, The unfortunate but valiant knight Montesinos sends me to the Knight of the Lions. Would that I saw thee in their claws, bidding me tell thee to wait for him wherever I may find thee, as he brings with him her whom they call Dulcinea del Toboso, that he may show thee what is needful in order to disenchant her, and as I came for no more, I need stay no longer. Demons of my sort be with thee, and good angels with these gentles. And saying so, he blew his huge horn, turned about, and went off without waiting for a reply from anyone. They all felt fresh wonder, but particularly Sancho and Don Quixote. Sancho, to see how, in defiance of the truth, they would have it that Dulcinea was enchanted. Don Quixote, because he could not feel sure whether what had happened to him in the cave of Montesinos was true or not. And as he was deep in these cogitations, the Duke said to him, Do you mean to wait, Señor Don Quixote? Oh, why not? Replied he. Here I will wait fearless and firm, though all hell should come to attack me. Well, then, I see another devil, or hear another horn like the last. I'll wait here as much as in Flanders, said Sancho. Night now closed in more completely, and many lights began to flit through the wood, just as those fiery exhalations from the earth that looked like shooting stars to our eyes flit through the heavens. A frightful noise, too, was heard, like that made by the solid wheels the ox carts usually have, by the harsh, ceaseless creaking of which they say the bears and wolves are put to flight, if there happen to be any that are passing. In addition to all this commotion, there came a further disturbance to increase the tumult. For now it seemed as if in truth on all 4 sides of the wood 4 encounters or battles were going on at the same time. In one quarter resounded the dull noise of a terrible cannonade. In another, numberless muskets were being discharged. The shouts of the combatants sounded almost close at hand, and further away the Moorish lilies were raised again and again. In a word, the bugles, the horns, the clarions, the trumpets, the drums, the cannon, the musketry, and above all the tremendous noise of the carts, all made up together a din so confused and terrific that Don Quixote had need to summon up all his courage to... Can I help you? What's wrong? Hi. Oh, do you want to come here? Alright, hold on. Give me just a second. Now where was I? That Don Quixote had need to summon up all his courage to brave it, but Sancho's gave way, and he fell fainting on the skirt of the Duchess's robe, who let him lie there and promptly bade them throw water in his face. This was done, and he came to himself by the time one of the carts with the creaking wheels reached the spot. It was drawn by 4 plodding oxen, all covered with black housings. On each horn they had fixed a large lighted wax taper, and on the top of the cart was constructed a raised seat, on which sat a venerable old man with a beard whiter than the very snow, and so long that it fell below his waist. He was dressed in a long robe of black buckram, for as the cart was thickly set with a multitude of candles, it was easy to make out everything that was on it. Leading it were two hideous demons, also clad in buckram, whose countenances so frightening that Sancho, having once seen them, shut his eyes so as not to see them again. As soon as the cart came opposite to the spot, the old man rose from his lofty seat, and standing up said in a loud voice, "I am the sage Lirgandale." And without another word, the cart then passed on. Behind it came another of the same form, with another aged man enthroned, who, stopping the cart, said in a voice no less solemn than that of the first, "I am the sage Alkif, the great friend of Urganda the Unknown," and passed on. Then another cart came by at the same pace, but the occupant of the throne was not old like the others, but a man stalwart and robust, and of a forbidding countenance, who, as he came up, he said in a voice far hoarser and more devilish, "I am the enchanter Archaeolus, the mortal enemy of Hamadis of Gaul and all his kindred," and then passed on. Having gone a short distance, the three carts halted, and the monotonous noise of their wheels ceased. And soon after they heard another, not noise, but sound of sweet harmonious music, of which Sancho was very glad, taking it to be a good sign, and he said to the Duchess, from whom he did not stir a step, or for a single instant, "Signora, where there's music there can't be mischief." "Nor where there are lights and it is bright," said the Duchess, to which Sancho replied, "Fire gives light, and it's bright where there are bonfires, and as we see by those that are all around us, and perhaps may burn us, but music is a sign of mirth and merrymaking." "That remains to be seen," said Don Quixote, who was listening to all that passed, "and he was right, as is shown in the following chapter." Give me just a second here. Very good water. Anyway. Chapter 35, wherein is continued the instruction given to Don Quixote touching the disenchantment of Dulcinea, together with other marvelous incidents. They saw advancing towards them, to the sound of this pleasant music, what they call a triumphal car, drawn by 6 grey mules with white linen housings, on each of which there was mounted a penitent, robed, also in white, with a large lighted wax taper in his hand. The cart was twice or perhaps 3 times as large as the former ones, and in front and on the side stood 12 more penitents, all as white as snow, and all with lighted tapers, a spectacle to excite fear as well as wonder. And on a raised throne was seated a nymph draped in a multitude of silver tissue veils, with an embroidery of countless gold spangles glittering all over them, that made her appear, if not richly, at least brilliantly apparelled. She had her face covered with thin, transparent sendal, the texture of which did not prevent the fair features of a maiden from being distinguished, while the numerous lights made it possible to judge of her beauty and of her years. She seemed to be not less than 17, but not to have reached yet 20. I see. Beside her was a figure in a robe of state, as they call it, reaching to the feet, while the head was covered with a black veil. But the instant the car was opposite the Duke and Duchess and Don Quixote, the music of the clarions ceased, and then that of the lutes and harps on the car, and the figure in the robe rose up, and flinging it apart and removing the veil from its face, disclosed to their eyes the shape of death itself, fleshless and hideous, at which sight Don Quixote felt uneasy, Sancho frightened, and the Duke and Duchess displayed a certain trepidation. Having risen to its feet, this living death, in a sleepy voice and with a tongue hardly awake, held forth as follows: "I am that Merlin who, the legends say, the devil had for father, and the lie have gathered credence with the lapse of time. of magic prince of Zoroastric lore, monarch and treasurer with jealous eye. I view the efforts of the age to hide the gallant deeds of doughty errant knights, who are and ever have been dear to me. Enchanters and magicians and their kind are mostly hard of heart, not so am I. For mine is tender, soft, and compassionate, and its delight is doing good to all in the dim caverns of the gloomy deep, where tracing mystic lines and characters my soul abideth now. There came to me the sorrow-laden plaint of her, the fair, the peerless Dulcinea del Toboso. I knew of her enchantment and her fate, from high-born dame to peasant wench transformed, and touched with pity, first I turned the leaves of countless volumes of my devilish craft, and then in this grim, grisly skeleton myself encasing, hither have I come to show where lies the fitting remedy to give relief in such a piteous case. O thou, the pride and pink of all that I wear, the adamantine steel, O shining light, O beacon, pole star, path and guide of all, who scorning slumber and the lazy down, adept to the toilsome life of blood-stained arms. To thee, great hero, who all praise transcends La Mancha's luster and Iberia's star, Don Quixote, wise as brave, to thee I say. For peerless Dulcinea del Toboso, her pristine form and beauty to regain, 'tis needful that thy esquire Sancho shall, on his own sturdy buttocks bared to heaven, 3,300 lashes lay, and that they smart and sting and hurt him well. Thus have the authors of her woe resolved, and this is, gentles, wherefore I have come. By all that's good, exclaimed Sancho at this, I'll just as soon give myself 3 stabs with a dagger as 3, not to say 3,000 lashes. The devil take such a way of disenchanting. I don't see what my backside has to do with enchantments. By God, if Senior Merlin has not found out some other way of disenchanting the Lady Dulcinea del Toboso, she may go to her grave enchanted. But I'll take you, Don Clown stuffed with garlic, said Don Quixote, and tie you to a tree as naked as when your mother brought you forth. I'd give you not to say 3,300, but 6,600 lashes, and so well laid on that they won't be got rid of you if you try 3,300 times. Don't answer me a word, or I'll tear your soul out. On hearing this, Merlin said, That will not do, for the lashes worthy Sancho has to receive must be given of his own free will, and not by force. And at whatever time he pleases, and there is no fixed limit assigned to him, but it is permitted to him, if he likes to commute by half the pain of this whipping, to let them be given by the hand of another, though it may be somewhat weighty. Oh, not a hand, my own or anybody else's, weighty or weighable, shall touch me, said Sancho. Was it I that gave birth to the Lady Dulcinea del Toboso, that my backside is to pay for the sin of her eyes? My master, indeed, that's a part of her, for he's always calling her my life and my soul, and his stay and prop. May ought to whip himself for her, and take all the trouble required for her disenchantment, but for me to whip myself. Abernuncio. Abernuncio? Hold on, let me check that one. Abernuncio. Not for me. Seems. Yes. Anyway. As soon as Sancho had done speaking, the nymph in silver that was to the side of Merlin's ghost stood up, removing the thin veil from her face, disclosed one that seemed to all something more than exceedingly beautiful, and with a masculine freedom from embarrassment and in a voice not very like a lady's, addressing Sancho directly, said, "Thou wretched squire, soul of a pitcher, heart of a cork tree, with bowels of flint and pebbles, if not thou impudent thief, that they bade thee throw thyself down from some lofty tower, if enemy of mankind, they asked thee to swallow a dozen of toads, 2 of lizards, and 3 of adders. If they wanted to see thee slay thy wife and child with a sharp murderous scimitar, it would be no wonder for thee to show thyself stubborn and squeamish, but to make a piece of work about 3,300 lashes, what every poor little charity boy gets every month. It is enough to amaze, astonish, and astound the compassionate bowels of all who hear it, nay, all who come to hear it in the course of time. Turn, O miserable, hard-hearted animal, turn, I say, those timorous owl's eyes upon these of mine that are compared to radiant stars, and thou wilt see them weeping, trickling streams and rills, and tracing furrows and tracks and paths over the fair fields of my cheeks. Let it move thee, crafty, ill-conditioned monster, to see my blooming youth still in its teens, for I am not yet 20, wasting and withering away beneath the husk of a rude peasant wench. And if I do not appear in that shape now, it is a special favor Signor Merlin here has granted me, to the sole end that my beauty may soften thee, for the tears of beauty and distress turn rocks into cotton and tigers into ewes. Lay on to it that hide of thine, thou great untamed brute. Rouse up thy lusty vigor that only urges thee to eat, and set free the softness of my flesh, and gentleness of my nature, and the fairness of my face. And if thou wilt not relent or come to reason for me, do so for the sake of that poor knight thou hast beside thee, thy master, I mean, whose soul I can this moment see, how he has it stuck in his throat, not 10 fingers from his lips, only waiting for thy inflexible or yielding reply to make its escape by his mouth, or go back again into his stomach." Don Quixote, on hearing this, felt his throat, and turning to the Duke, said, "By God, Signor Dulcinea is true. I have my soul stuck here in my throat like the nut of a crossbow." "What say you to this, Sancho?" said the Duchess. "I say, Signora," returned Sancho, "what I said before. As for the lashes, Abernuncio, you should say, Sancho, and not as you do," said the Duke. "Let me alone, your highness," said Sancho. "I am not in humor now to look into niceties or letter or less, for these lashes that are to be given to me, or I'm to give myself, have so upset me that I don't know what I'm saying or doing. But I'd like to know of this lady, my lady Dulcinea del Toboso, where she learned this way she has of asking favors. She comes to ask me to score my flesh with lashes, and she calls me the soul of a pitcher and a great untamed brute and a string of foul names that the devil is welcome to. Is my flesh brass, or is it anything to me whether she is enchanted or not? Does she not bring with her a basket of fair linen, shirts, kerchiefs, socks, not that I wear any, to coax me? No, nothing but one piece of abuse after another, though she knows the proverb they have here, and that an ass loaded with gold goes lightly up a mountain, and that gifts break rocks, and praying to God and plying the hammer, and that one take is better than 2 I'll give these. Then there's my master, who ought to stroke me down and pet me to make me turn wool and carded cotton. He says if he gets hold of me, he'll tie me naked to a tree and double the tale of lashes on me. These tender-hearted gentry should consider that it's not merely a squire, but a governor they're asking to whip himself, just as if it was drink with cherries. Let them learn, plague take them, the right way to ask and beg and behave themselves, for all times are not alike, nor are all people always in good humor. I'm now ready to burst with grief at seeing my green coat torn. and they come to ask me to whip myself of my own free will, I having as little fancy for it as for turning, kashike? Hold on, let me see here. Kasike? Kasike. Spanish. Ah, king. I see. There it is. Well then, the fact is, friend Sancho, said the Duke, that unless you become softer than a ripe fig, you shall not get hold of the government. It would be a nice thing for me to send my islanders for a cruel governor with flinty bowels who won't yield to the tears of afflicted damsels or to the prayers of wise, magisterial, ancient enchanters and sages. In short, Sancho, either you must be whipped yourself, or they must whip you, or you shan't be governor. Oh, senor, said Sancho, won't 2 days' grace be given me in which to consider what is best for me? No, certainly not, said Merlin. Here, this minute, and on the spot, the matter must be settled. Either Dulcinea will return to the cave of Montesinos and to her former condition of peasant wench, or else in her present form shall be carried to the Elysian fields, where she will remain waiting until the number of stripes is completed. Now then, Sancho, said the Duchess, show courage and gratitude for your master Don Quixote's bread that you have eaten. We are all bound to oblige and please him for his benevolent disposition and lofty chivalry. Consent to this whipping, my son. To the devil with the devil, and leave fear to milksops, for a stout heart breaks bad luck, as you very well know. To which Sancho replied with an irrelevant remark, which, addressing Merlin, he made to him. Will your worship tell me, Signor Merlin, when that courier devil came up to give he gave my master a message from Signor Montesinos, charging him to wait for him here, as he was coming to arrange how the lady Donna de Senia del Toboso was to be disenchanted. But up to the present we have not seen Montesinos, nor anything like him. To which Merlin made answer, the devil, Sancho, is a blockhead and a great scoundrel. I sent him to look for your master, but not with a message from Montesinos, but from myself. But Montesinos is in his cave expecting, or more properly speaking, waiting for his disenchantment, for there's the tale to be skinned yet for him. If he owes you anything, or you have any business to transact with him, I'll bring him to you and put him where you choose, but for the present make up your mind to consent to this penance. And believe me, it will be very good for you, for soul as well as for body. For your soul, because of the charity with which you perform it. For your body, because I know you are of a sanguine habit, and it will do you no harm to draw a little blood. There are a great many doctors in the world, even the enchanters are doctors, said Sancho. However, as everybody tells me the same thing, though I can't see it myself, I say I am willing to give myself the 3,300 lashes, provided I am to lay them on whenever I like, without any fixing of days or times, and I'll try to get out of the debt as quickly as I can, that the world may enjoy the beauty of the Lady Dulcinea del Toboso, as it seems contrary to what I thought, that she is beautiful after all. It must be a condition, too, that I am not to be bound to draw blood with the scourge, and that if any of the lashes happen to be fly flappers, they are to count. Item that, in case I should make any mistake in the reckoning, Signor Merlin, as he knows everything, is to keep count, and to let me know how many are still wanting or over the number. There will be no need to let you know of any over, said Merlin, because when you reach the full number, the Lady Dulcinea will at once, and at that very instant, be disenchanted, and will come in her gratitude to seek out the worthy Sancho, and thank him, and even reward him for the good work. So you have no cause to be uneasy about stripes too many or too few. Heaven forbid I should cheat anyone of even a hair on his head. Well then, in God's hands be it, said Sancho. In the hard case I give in. I say I accept the penance on the conditions laid down. The instant Sancho uttered these last words, the music of the clarion struck up once again, and again a host of muskets were discharged, and Don Quixote hung on Sancho's neck, kissing him again and again on the forehead and cheeks. The Duchess and the Duke expressed the greatest satisfaction. The car began to move on, and as it passed, the fair Dulcinea bowed to the Duke and Duchess, and made a low curtsy to Sancho. Oh, hold on, give me just a moment. And now bright smiling dawn came on apace. The flowers of the field revived, raised up their heads, and the crystal waters of the brooks, murmuring over the gray and white pebbles, hastened to pay their tribute to the expectant rivers. The glad earth, the unclouded sky, the fresh breeze, the clear light, each and all showed that the day that came treading on the skirts of morning would be calm and bright. The Duke and Duchess, pleased with their hunt and at having carried out their plan so cleverly and successfully, returned to their castle, resolved to follow up their joke, for to them there was no reality that could afford them more amusement. All right, now while this is a short one, I'm gonna have to cut it here at chapter 36 because, wow, my tummy hurts. Let me go see if we got anybody to send you guys off to on the Twitch side. Let me just crack open the stream manager here. And then, yeah, I'll get you guys a rolling. Let me see. I got any fellow Chubas doing any story time? Not a great lot. Well, it looks like we've got one by the title of let me see here. Wonder if this will count. Nope. So then I'll tell you what. Let me just nix those here. We'll see who else is doing things. It looks like. Hi, can I help you? What are you doing? Listen, I'm trying to find people that I can raid. Hang on. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. I know it's very hard being the best cat in the house. Don't you worry, I'll almost be done here. I'll tell you what. Let me send you off to one incandescent writer. Looks like they're doing they're writing some type of bloodborne fan fiction, I suppose. So I'll tell you what. I'll go and bounce you guys over that way as soon as I get this. What are you doing? Can I help you? All right. Well. All right. Well, let me get the. Oh, never mind. I guess I can't actually raid them. Well, in that case, let me go see if any of my other compatriots that I'm raiding are rather following. I wonder if. Hi. Oh, and there she goes. Foul critter. Let's see. Anybody that I'm following? Anyone? Somebody. Okay, maybe let's just go with our following list. Nope. It doesn't look like we got much. But I'll tell you what. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll throw a poll up on the Twitter of whether it's gonna be Ghost Runner or Dead Space. Specifically the Dead Space remake, because that's my favorite one. So yeah, I'll be back at noon o'clock on the dot. Well, I mean, hopefully, give or take. At noon, not 9. But anyway, I'll be seeing you all, tomorrow. Thank you all very much for attending. I truly do appreciate it. So, I'll be seeing you sometime. Now go! Scatter! Scatter to the winds! Everybody run!